Welcome to the Wednesday, November 18th, regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Planning Commission. My name is Donnell Weich. I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. For detailed information on meeting procedures, please review the full printed meeting agenda, which is provided at each end of the dais. Manager Leonard, would you please call the roll?
Of course. Commissioner Weich.
Present.
Commissioner Abrams.
Here.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Dish.
Here.
Commissioner Mills. Commissioner Weatherby.
Here.
Commissioner Adams.
Here.
Commissioner Norton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Moved by Commissioner Lee, seconded by Commissioner Abrams. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 5th, 2025 meeting? All right. Moved by Commissioner Abrams, second by Commissioner Lee. Is there any discussion of the minutes from that meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Next up are reports to the Planning Commission and written communications. We'll start, if Councilmember Dish is ready, with Councilmember Dish.
Yes. So last night, Council approved the rezoning of 1 acre of land from township to, I think it was R1A, and also approved the sort of cleanup rezoning to R4 for the village, yeah, to the open space that's there, privately owned. And Arbor South was pulled from the agenda.
Next, we'll have the manager report by Mr. Leonard.
Just 2 new updates. I want to share with the Planning Commission, we have 2 new colleagues on our team that you'll hopefully be seeing at a future meeting. Emma Berger, who many of you met on our mobile tour, is now a part-time city planner with our team. Happy to transition her from intern to full-fledged planner. And Eric Berdonic is a new zoning coordinator on our team. So if you see those names in and about, they are new valued colleagues, and hopefully we'll get them to introduce to you at the Planning Commission soon. Also, just a note for members of the public, both here and watching. I do want to note that we do have a discussion of the comprehensive plan on this agenda. However, it is not a public hearing item. So if you do wish to address the Planning Commission on that item, I would recommend you do that at either the early public comment or public comment at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Do any other commission officers or liaisons have anything to report? Written communications are included in today's packet. This brings us to agenda item number 6, public comment. This is an opportunity for individuals to speak up to 3 minutes on issues not listed as a public hearing or dedicated public comment period on our agenda. We will first hear from those of you who are present here in the chambers. Then we will hear from remote participants. To speak remotely, press star 9 if on phone, or use the raised hand feature if using Zoom. For phone access, dial 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will identify callers by the last 3 digits of their phone number or by name if they are using Zoom. You will hear an announcement when it's your turn to speak. Please move to a quiet area, mute any background noise before speaking. For all participants, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present in chambers who would like to address the Planning Commission at this time?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Crockett. My wife Christine and I have lived at 506 East Kingsley in the 04th Ward for 45 years. The 04th Ward Historic District was created in 1983, and shortly thereafter, in 1984, the 04th Ward Neighborhood Association was formed. In addition to supporting historic preservation initiatives in downtown Ann Arbor, we have worked closely with the Intercooperative Council and U of M's Beyond the Diag program to improve life in the nearby downtown for all residents, which includes support for local businesses such as the People's Food Co-op, Zingerman's, and the Carytown Shops. The board of the 04th Ward is deeply concerned about the transition designation for our area. It just doesn't make sense to us. The 04th Ward is one of the densest neighborhoods in the city, and its density has steadily increased, both from new developments such as 530 North Division and from the redesign of interiors, which are not subject to historic district regulations. The decision to designate our area a transition district was not made with any input from the 04th Ward Neighborhood Association. We share this concern with the Old West Side Association and the Broadway Historic District. As a result, we have joined together to form the Ann Arbor Preservation Alliance, now over 100 strong, to educate citizens about the numerous benefits that historic districts and historic preservation bring to the citizens of Ann Arbor. The APA has submitted several documents to the portal that detail the numerous benefits of historic preservation and illustrate how Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Madison, Portland, Boulder, and Minneapolis have effectively incorporated the benefits of historic districts into their master plans. These documents also conclusively show how historic districts support the 4 core values of the club, including affordability, equity, sustainability, and dynamism. We urge you to include these benefits in your 4th draft. A few of these benefits are: older neighborhoods can be more affordable, keeping older housing maintained and occupied both in historic districts and elsewhere needs to be a central strategy for housing affordability. The chances of a dwelling unit being raised and replaced by a more affordable unit is virtually non-existent. Historic neighborhoods provide economic diversity at the neighborhood level. Historic districts are more densely populated than other single-family neighborhoods and have a greater variety of housing types, including rentals. They were designed from the beginning for mixed uses. They provide density at a human scale. Tourists are drawn to restaurants, arts, local shops, sense of place, and cultural events in historic downtowns in Ann Arbor. The Ann Arbor Preservation Alliance stands ready to work with all of you, the Planning Commission, upon your invitation to create an historic district statement that meets the standard set by these 6 communities. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Adam Juszkiewicz, Las Vegas Drive in the 4th Ward, not the old, but the new 4th Ward. I don't have specific changes to suggest tonight on the draft comp plan, but wanted to state my support for the current draft and the process thus far. On whole, this plan supports the values of an affordable, sustainable, equitable, and dynamic Ann Arbor for all. It's been a contentious but robust engagement process, and incorporating voices from across our community is important. I'm glad you've been able to do that in this draft, even though their feedback is often contradictory and I haven't always agreed with some of those voices. I hope as we wrap up the plan and move on to zoning after the holidays, we can have a bit of a reset as a community and come to the table with a little less anger and a little more positivity and creative energy. I'm excited to see where we go from here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Griswold. One of the terms we hear frequently when we're planning for the city is walkable neighborhoods. It's so important to have walkable neighborhoods. And we describe walkable neighborhoods as having schools and restaurants and grocery stores. And I can tell you, I've lived in my neighborhood for over 42 years, and we have all those things. We have multiple schools. We have a CVS, we have a Bush's, we have many other stores. But what we don't have is pedestrian safety. And I can tell you, in the last 2 years, we have had 2 serious injury accidents of older women, not quite as old as me, but older women, and 1 fatality, again, an older woman. Now, this is within 1 mile of my house. This is completely unacceptable. 2 of those crashes occurred at the corner of Green and Glacier Way, an intersection that I have submitted no less than 10 requests for improvement. I was submitting requests for improvements before A2 Fix-It even was here, so a lot of them are simply emails. After someone was critically injured, a friend of mine, in August of 2023, I got a response back from city engineering that it really wasn't a dangerous intersection, and it wasn't an irregular intersection because there were 90-degree angles for the two streets. And so then I put in another A2 fix-it, and I said I can't see the cyclists in the bike lane when I'm coming up Glacier Way. So they're going to work on that. I think the magic word is cyclists, and then you do get at least an email back, even if no response. So what can we do? We need some sidewalks. We need sight distance. The vegetation is not just over the bike lanes and over the sidewalk. In some cases, it is over the curb at intersections. We need lighting. We have school crosswalks without adequate lighting. And we have a new crosswalk that was put in across Waldenwood where they did the elaborate improvements to Earhart, most of which is really great, but you do elaborate improvements on one street, and you can't afford to do anything on the other street. So across Waldenwood, which is in the school walk zone, we have an unlit crosswalk. Signs for our school crosswalks. When I complained about one, wait a minute, I didn't complain. When I put in a ticket for one of the school crosswalks, the city's response was to remove the school crosswalk. So now we have a crosswalk without a school crosswalk sign. But I'm looking for great improvements as we move forward with the community, comprehensive land use plan, which I hope the city takes seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Susan Kaufman. I live at 630 Fifth Street, and I'm a member of the Ann Arbor Preservation Alliance. I speak for myself today, but I endorse the recommendations that the Alliance has submitted to you. I'm here to encourage you to adopt and extend language addressing historic preservation presented in your packets for discussion. Please add to the plan the statement that historic districts serve to recognize and conserve structures within distinct areas that provide significant historical meaning and heritage reflecting the city's origins and early development. Also include any modifications to existing districts would require following similarly extensive public input and deliberation procedures as those required to create historic districts. These statements would be welcome, positive changes. Additional language recommended for inclusion recognizes that historic districts are already among the densest and most walkable in the city with multiple building types. It continues, historic district boundaries and requirements within them will continue to follow the standards and guidelines established by the Historic District Commission, the HDC. The city should support opportunities for increased missing middle housing density within historic districts when and where appropriate and consistent with HDC standards and guidelines for modifications to existing structures and the development of new structures within historic districts. The HDC guidelines are incompatible with the greater massing and height permitted in transition and hub land use categories underlying all or part of residential historic districts. I and many other residents of historic districts fail to understand why the plan creates underlying land use categories that cannot be implemented. Doing so has created significant consternation, confusion, and mistrust. To what end? Our peer cities don't do this. They don't want inherent conflict built into their plans, and they choose to clearly prioritize preservation because they appreciate its benefits. I strongly urge that the Ann Arbor Plan should align any new underlying land use category with the built environment in historic districts. All historic districts currently zoned residential should remain residential, generally 3 stories or less, under the plan. This recognizes that Chapter 103 of the City Code governs historic districts. All preceding land use plans have recognized the necessity and enduring value of historic districts, 5 more words, as core components of urban life. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tricia Hackney. I live at the Crossings in Ann Arbor. The book Abundance by Klein and Thompson is on the city's list of recommended resources for TCP justification. Elon Musk is extolled as a walking example of private business and government working together. No mention of Doge. Wow. Abundance has a distinctive GOP essence, emphasizing regulations, government bureaucracy, and red tape as sources for our housing crisis. And while this has some truth to our housing conundrum, it constitutes only 20% at best of the equation. Egregiously absent is corporate connections that are essential, that are central to all plans, implementation, and decisions based on profit. The example in Abundance is California's failure to manifest a mass transit system. In 2030 to 2033, California targets the completion of its long sought-after mass transit system, a full century after beginning this initiative due to corporate malfeasance. Any company with profits at risk successfully made sure the mass transit system didn't happen for 100 years. Corporate involvement is pivotal to public projects, housing included, but without transparency, public transparency. San Francisco was the exception and is 60 years ahead of their peer municipalities because they didn't bow to corporate pressures. TPC forecasts increasing Ann Arbor's population by up to over 90,000, yet insists neighborhoods will not be affected, which is incongruous with existing geography. There simply isn't enough land to house that number, let alone half or a third of 90,000 without infringing on existing neighborhoods significantly. Where will they live exactly? Just don't sell doesn't sell unless you are naive enough to believe vulnerable communities will not be exploited. For sure, they will not be housed in Toomey Hills, but in middle and lower class neighborhoods where profitability is at a premium. In tandem with profitability will be exponential increases in property taxes, as exemplified in the now infamous 904 Lincoln at a 500% increase. YIMBY has nothing to do with affordable housing, only massive tax increases to fund the city's mini NYC model at the expense of the middle class. Simultaneously, the city has planted the seeds of fiduciary instability at Arrowwood. The new housing claim is affordable questions the definition of affordable in some cases.
Thank you.
Okay. The public deserves better.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tom Stolberg, 1202 Traver, in the heart of Lower Town. I've been looking forward for years to the revision of our comprehensive land use plan. What I'd like to still see would be an effective plan. The current plan is not that. It will not be effective in achieving its main goals. I've discussed that in the past. It does not provide for affordability, sustainability, equity, and I'll pass on dynamism, whether it does or doesn't. I'd like to talk about some very specific items. One, why is Knight's Restaurant Hub? Why is Bear Claw Coffee Hub? Why are my neighbors here in a a category called residential or transition? Does anybody know what that means? Can you have that in a plan? Just say, we punted, we don't know what it's going to be, so we'll put some markings on the future land use map? No, put it in the plan now. Things that should be in the plan now would be more numbers, size, massing, setbacks. You don't have to have every detail, but you can't leave almost every detail out and have an effective plan. A couple numbers. Lisa Dish, my council member, sent out a flyer, a trifold with her and my other ward rep, Cynthia Harrison, and the mayor. And in that flyer, it says something about that this draft will allow for homes of up to 3 stories in the residential category, a 5-foot increase over currently allowable heights. I hope you discuss that tonight, because that's nowhere in the plan, that there's some kind of 5-foot increase. Right now, our residential zones allow for up to 30 feet, and that's, yes, measured at the midpoint of the roof. There's nowhere in there that talks about that there's some limit to only 5 more feet on that 3 stories. So you can have a 3-story building now, you can have a 3-story building later, but what are the heights? We don't know is the real answer right now. There's a drawing at the end of the document that was an attachment to this agenda item. It shows a comparison of a single-family home and duplex, triplex, quadplex. As you all know from previous discussions, I own some duplexes. I own a triplex. And by the way, my triplex is in the Old West Side Historic District. I'm a member of the Ann Arbor Preservation Alliance and support what's been said so far. That transition would maybe give me short-term rentals, non-owner-occupied short-term rentals at my triplex location. That's very lucrative for me. I don't want it, please. The plan says you're going to discuss that at some point later in the writing the zoning. No, short-term rentals should be in the plan right now. In terms of, I'm jumping all over the place, but the bottom line is we need more details. People have no clue what the plan is, even if they read it thoroughly, because there's so much vagueness, so much unknown, and so much that belongs in a comprehensive plan, as it does in other peer cities plans, but not ours. This is not an effective plan. You have time to get there.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Monroe. I live at 1261 Bending Road. So I'm just here. I just wanted to comment on a couple of the public comments that I read. I appreciate that the city posted those and made those transparent, so thank you for that. I want to voice my support for meaningful prohibition or regulation of short-term rentals. I think it should be nothing by right in transition or residential. I just think it's really hard to justify allowing that and having that comport with the values that this plan, states that it will bring about. And I also think enforcement is pretty straightforward, right? We can Google things. Hotels are pretty obvious. Like, this should be something that we can kind of keep. We can monitor, check in on, and monitor over time. The other thing, a resident asked to share the GIS map of the zoning districts with residents publicly, and I think that is a excellent idea, and I think that should occur. I'm not sure why it has not already. I also support the comment that the following language around high-rise mixed-use buildings when adjacent to hub be removed from the transition zone. Just honestly, every time I have heard this discussion about adjacent and tapering, et cetera, I am always confused about what adjacent is defined as, right? Endless boundary creep could be possible there. And then I also want to respond to resident concerns. This is mostly something I've spoke about in the past in previous meetings, that, the transition zone designation in what are currently today residential neighborhoods in practice. And I don't think this is a lack of understanding on the residents' part. I think residents understand very well that their homes will be closer to increased height limits than what is allowed today. That their neighborhoods will face greater flexibility of uses, right, including commercial and industrial. And frankly, the way development hearings have proceeded, where residents sort of voice their concerns and then are told that, their quality of life will be diminished when something is approved, and yet we're going to do that anyways for the greater good. I think it's diminished a lot of trust in our residents, and that's why that language is not helpful for them either. And then finally, I think residents understand that their current residential neighborhood is far more likely to experience lot assembly and massive development in transition zones, right? And so if tapering limits 3 stories in these areas, what practical difference exists between transition and residential, I ask you? So the other thing I want to say there is the justification seems like that because it's R3 or R4 today, that's why these areas are in transition, but that also seems sort of flawed to use this existing zoning, which this plan presupposes is backwards and wrong, as the source of truth to make these decisions, especially when, again, all residential districts today are being upzoned, triple the number of units. So, this argument that we can't go backwards, I'm not sure that stands up either. So with my remaining time, I'd also like to voice support for lot assembly restrictions in residential. and someone also supported for KPIs, right? So what gets measured, get done. I really think we need real key performance indicators in the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any, okay. No, I didn't see you there, Mr. Westfall.
Good evening, Commission. Kirk Westfall, 3505 Charter Place. I want to echo the confusion I've heard about the additional 5 feet in residential. My understanding was that that had been discussed and retracted or corrected, and maybe it would be helpful to correct that again for the record, that height has not been determined. So I have a couple of just categorical comments about the plan so far, just kind of dry stuff. There's the text issues and also the map issues. In terms of text, I think the largest thing that was alluded to just a few minutes ago on page 113, that there's an implication that there can only be high rises in transition if it's adjacent to hub, and I think that may not be what you want to, that may be what you decide to do eventually, but I think if something is far enough away from residential in a transition zone or next to open space or however far away you deem appropriate to taper, that high rises could be in transition even if they aren't next to hub. So I would recommend striking if adjacent to hub. And have some other nitpicky things that I sent in an email. I think a search and replace on context would be good, just because people tend to read what they want into context, and this will all be quantitatively handled when you do the zoning. With regard to the map, I think I would encourage, I don't know, maybe a working session or something at some point about the map. Every time I zoom in to it, I seem to just find some issues. One larger issue, I think, is a legend or categorization issue where we have city parks designated, and we have city county, land. We have U of M land and schools, and then we have another catch-all that says, I think, parks, open space, and recreational facilities. And I guess unless you're anticipating creating a zoning district that has to do with recreational facilities or open space that's not city parks. For example, the Racquet Club, off of Huron Parkway is on there as recreational facility, and I think that's kind of like Ann Arbor Golf and Outing that should not be just considered recreational facility. I think you should give it residential transition. And there's also some boundary issues like if you zoom in around Murphin and Plymouth and Upper Broadway, there's some ownership categories there that I find confusing. But anyway, I think that's worth its own dedicated session because that gets very specific and maybe not great for a general meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers? No, thank you.
Evening, this is Alex Lowe. I'd like to talk to you about historic districts. I find the selling points of historic districts that other commenters have given to be very fascinating because the very benefits that they're offering and claiming to be unique to historic districts are in fact what the comprehensive plan aims to make legal throughout the city rather than just in small exclusive areas that predate our exclusionary and racist zoning laws. On a different topic, though, I appreciated a previous commenter mentioning my particular neighborhood, as he wanted to know why it's designated as residential or transition. And I, too, would love to know the answer to that. It doesn't make sense to me, because the limitations that the comprehensive plan are implying for residential would be tantamount to downzoning my neighborhood. And I thought that was kind of the opposite of where we were going with the comprehensive plan. So it seems quite questionable to me that it would be residential rather than transition or hub. Finally, local landlords who own more homes than I could ever afford are asking you not to take action on our local housing crisis. It certainly does make sense that those landlords wouldn't want more competition. After all, it would go against their financial interests. But landlords make up a small minority of the city, who we could refer to as the landed gentry. And it would make much more sense to focus on the majority of the city, those who are struggling to find even one home, rather than having so many extra that they can't hold them all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in chambers who would like to address? Are you getting up, Mr. Garber?
Thank you, Chair Weiss, for the invitation.
You're welcome.
I apologize for the rant on sustainability I'm about to deliver. It's one of the comp plan's 4 core values, but the plan falls way short. The climate crisis demands solutions that challenge our entrenched ways of housing ourselves and moving ourselves and our consumerism. But the comp plan basically accepts the status quo with half measures that will make little impact on greenhouse gas emissions. This limited approach is compounded by the constant mention of resilience, which is invoked an astounding 46 times in the plan. By contrast, the term fossil fuel is mentioned exactly once. We need less false optimism and more urgency for drastically lowering our individual and collective carbon emissions, carbon footprint. We should not simply accept the social and economic norms that have gotten us here. Our planet is dying. So I'm working on my specific suggestions, which I hope to send to you soon. For now, I'll just say that the 820 plan is not working. Bryant neighborhood decarbonization is underway, great project, but Bryant is 262 homes, roughly 280,000 square feet. Consider the legacy, the 19-story building on East Washington that opened to students this year, 255,000 square feet, all heated with fossil gas. That one project will almost completely negate the emissions savings from Bryant. And it's just one. There's a whole bunch of others. Broadway Park West, 260,000 square feet. Sartorius, 250,000. The Village, which you'll see probably in a couple months coming back to you, 400,000 square feet with gas as far as we know. 4 hotels on their way, 2 approved, 2 under review, all with gas. Even the Marriott going up across the street there is heated with gas in its common spaces. The city has approved over 2.5 million square feet of gas-heated new construction since adopting 820, most yet to come online. Reduced commuter emissions will help, but they offset only a fraction. And we don't even count embedded emissions from all that steel and concrete, which can add up to amounts to up to 50% of a building's lifetime emissions. None of this reflects on staff's good work. They've been working hard. It's a collective failure, and I blame myself too. I think we all have to look inward. But the comp plan is a plan for 2050, and it needs to go much further on sustainability than it does. So again, you'll be hearing details from me or reading them, hopefully in a couple weeks at the latest. Thanks for considering this. It's great to be with you again tonight, and thanks for all your work on the comp plan.
Thank you, Mr. Garber. Is there anyone else in chambers who'd like to address the commission? Seeing none. Mr. Leonard, do we have online participants?
No hands raised.
Great. Seeing none, I will close the public comment and move to agenda item number 7, communication from commissioners. Is there any? All right. I just have a couple things that I wanted to check on. Mr. Monroe asked about the GIS for zones, those exist today because the zones are available in the GIS. Is that correct?
I presume he actually was referencing the future land use map, which we have not made a GIS layer until that plan is adopted.
Because we haven't adopted it, so that would be the answer to that. But I think once that gets adopted, it'll be present. Hold on. I'll just keep going through. On the historic districts, Mr. Leonard, just remind me again for my edification, those are not under the direct purview of the comprehensive land use plan?
Historic districts are established by separate legislation. They're not by the Planning Act. Some comprehensive plans do address them, but they're not established by this body.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. I think it was Mr. Westfall who asked about the recreation zoning for the golfing club and the racket club on Huron Parkway. Do you have any information to share with us about how they got designated as recreation, though they are private, as opposed to residential or transition?
I could look into that. There's been a lot of dialogue about both current uses versus our aspirational uses. There's been dialogue about ownership. We've had conversations about which parks to include. For example, some school playgrounds are not city parks, but they function very much as parks. So I don't know the entire history of those. If that's something that the commission wants to explore, that was, of course, something you could consider as part of your finalization of the plan.
Okay. And then there was a comment about a property that sold recently and its taxes went up 500%. That is just a function of the property changing owners and then being subject to state law as it relates to taxable properties, correct?
No.
Please do not interrupt our deliberation, please.
So,
Mr. Leonard?
So often properties, when they are under constant ownership for a long time, state law has restrictions. The taxes paid on that property do not necessarily rise with the same rate that the value of the property rises. And when that property is sold, state law does allow that property to be reassessed. And oftentimes you hear it as it's called uncapped or referred to, and often that results in a large jump in taxes, particularly for a property that might have been under a singular ownership for a long period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Are there any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Dish?
I'm glad you asked that question because I wanted to follow up. What I thought I understood from the question that was asked was whether that jump in a single property affects the surrounding properties.
The surrounding properties are still limited by the same restrictions that keep the taxable value constrained over the lifetime. So I am not an assessor, so I can't speak to how that might long-term affect the assessment of a category or an area or a neighborhood. There are considerations of that across the city. However, even with valuation changes, the surrounding properties are still constrained in growth. So even if the market value were to exponentially increase over a short period of time, the continued ownership keeps taxable value at a much lower rate.
Right. So even if the value of a home that is under constant ownership increases, the ability of that value increase to affect the tax bill is limited.
First to the rate of inflation. If property values increase at a rate of 10% per year, but the rate of inflation is 2% per year, the city cannot increase the taxable value of that property by more than 2%. That's a gross oversimplification, but that's roughly what it means.
And isn't there another piece that you're not taxed on the full value of your home that you're living in?
That's the distinction of the market value of your house and the assessed value increasing at a faster rate than the taxable value can increase by state law.
Okay.
Thank you. I also wanted to note that I recently had a meeting with staff to discuss the transition conversations that we've been having. I think, Mr. Monroe, you brought this up in your comments around the boundaries and what does it mean if something is zone transition. And then I think maybe Mr. Stolberg or even Mr. Crockett may have mentioned that in their comments about how it affects the residential. And so I've asked staff to work with the Planning Commission to help us communicate a little bit better about how those imagined districts will impact each other. And so I'm waiting to hear back on the result of that conversation. The earliest that we may see it at the table may be in our regular meeting or work session in December. So we are hearing a lot of concern around how transition abuts or is adjacent to or interacts with residential, and we are working to try to clarify that as best we can. I think it is also the case that we haven't made those determinations. I think, Mr. Stolberg, you are correct. We haven't put those things into the comp plan because that's not the stage that we are in our development. And so I've also asked that staff prepare a memo that helps both the commission and the public understand what stage we are in and what stages are to come and what topics we will entertain as we move through those stages. So we appreciate your comments. I think we've received over 400 comments on the this current revision. We got a very large spreadsheet with them that we have been reviewing. And so we will continue to take that feedback. We will continue to process it, and we will continue to move the process forward. Are there any other commissioners who have communications at this time?
Maybe
Commissioner
just a clarification. I was saving my comments around the comp plan for the comp plan
You can.
agenda item. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing my opportunity to.
No. It's just
provide
some
feedback.
people may not be here when you make those comments. And so this is an opportunity for us to address right after
Okay.
public comment.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Are there any other communications from commissioners? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, public hearing scheduled for the next meeting. Mr. Leonard.
Yes, we have 3 public hearings scheduled for the Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025 meeting, which is scheduled to begin at 7, back to your normal 7 p.m. time. First, the Dean, 558 South Fifth Avenue. This is rezoning 1 acre from R4C multiple family dwelling and M1 limited industrial to D1 downtown core base with the midtown character overlay and a secondary street frontage designation. The petition is to rezone 9 parcels including 554, 558 South Fifth Avenue, 201, 211, and 215 East Madison, and 543, 547, 551, 553 South 4th Avenue. This a site plan to develop a 14-story residential building will be submitted separately. The second is near North, 700 North Main Street, rezoning 1.2 acres from R4C multiple family dwelling to R4E multiple family dwelling. A petition to rezone a 52,000 square foot site at 700 North Main Street. A site plan to develop a 6-story residential building will be submitted separately. And finally, amendment to Chapter 55 Unified Development Code regarding community participation requirements. A proposal to amend Section 5.28.4 community participation requirements to require posted signs in addition to the written invitations and mailed announcements for Type 1 and Type 2 community participation with regulations for the content, placement, and timing of the signs.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. That takes us to agenda item number 9, Bike and Vehicular Parking Ordinance Amendment. In an ordinance to amend multiple sections of 5.19 parking requirements to update bicycle parking requirements and to improve usability, design, and accessibility of bicycle parking facilities and to reformat the required parking table. Staff recommendation is approval. We'll start with a staff presentation by Planner Malene Cochran.
Thank you. All right, I am back to talk about bicycle parking. And included in your packet, I'll just give an overview of some of the proposed changes to bicycle parking. One is a simplified required bicycle parking table that also includes barrier-free parking requirements, also includes increased requirements for multifamily developments, and decreased Class A requirements in the downtown districts. It includes language clarifying acceptable locations for all classes of bicycle parking, a reformatted design of bicycle parking facilities, the section in the UDC to clarify requirements for each parking class, and it includes other language that clarifies access requirements and encourages wayfinding signage. As part of this, there is also a proposal to reformat the vehicle parking table, which when we took out the bicycle parking requirements, which would condense the table. There are no major changes to the requirements. It's mainly reformatting. This has been to the ORC, so those memos are also included in the packet. And then I wanted to just call out some of the changes from when this last was presented at the November 5th meeting 2 weeks ago. So those are also included in today's staff memo. Bigger ones are some, again, general reorganization and language updates for the design of bicycle parking facilities section. Also including dimensional and design requirements as separated standards for bicycle parking spaces, which hopefully gets closer to defining preferred rack types. Staff does believe that detailed recommendations for bicycle racks would be more appropriate to have in a guide that is accessed online and is not directly in the UDC. So if that's something you would like, we can add that to our work plan. Updated language also includes clarification that racks should be centered within the dimensional requirements of the bicycle parking space. This was after reviewing the existing inverted U racks that are at the downtown library, which are too close to landscaping elements, which makes them difficult to use. So centering them within the dimensional requirements should help with that so that that doesn't happen again. Also, we have removed the alternatives, and from the alternative section, the following primary uses from the exceptions to required bike parking: adult foster care, emergency shelter, funeral services, parks, recreation and open space, transportation facilities, agriculture, and outdoor storage. So those were carryovers from the existing table that do not require bicycle parking, and they will now require the bicycle parking per their general use categories in the proposed table. And then some other alternative language has been updated. So there was also some discussion, staff would like to clarify from the past meeting that the decrease in downtown required spaces is particularly for Class A requirements. And specifically, we are looking at the high-rise apartment buildings that we're seeing. Those, when we did a review of those existing bicycle facilities, they were rarely used or not full, and so that's why the decrease in Class A requirements is proposed. The requirements for Class C parking in the downtown area remain the same, and reviewing Class C requirements could be added to the work plan, and discussions with the Downtown Development Authority could also be added. They're just not included in the scope of this project. And after reviewing the language in the 3 different classes of bicycle parking, A, B, and C, staff isn't proposing any major changes to the kind of way that we define the intent because we feel that it appropriately outlines each class as it relates to the requirements. And I think that's all I have for right now, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We will now move to a public hearing. Is this a hearing, a public hearing, or a public discussion? It's a hearing.
Public hearing.
Great. A public hearing on this matter. So this is an individual for individuals to speak up to 3 minutes on the proposed amendment to 5.19 parking requirements. We will first hear from those of you who are present with us in the chambers, and then we will hear from remote participants. To speak remotely, press star 9 if on phone, or use the raise hand feature if using Zoom. You can, for phone access, you can call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will identify callers by the last 3 digits of their phone number or by name if on Zoom. You will hear an announcement when it's your turn to speak. Please ensure you're in a quiet area and please mute any background noise. For all participants, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present in chambers who would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, Mr. Limerick. Leonard, do we have any remote participants who would like to speak?
No hands are raised.
Thank you. I shall close the public hearing. And I will now read the proposed motion. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve amendments to Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, Section 5.19 to simplify and update the required parking tables and to make the design of bicycle parking facilities more user-friendly. Moved by Commissioner Weatherby, seconded by Commissioner Lee. We are now in discussion. Who would like to kick us off? All right, Commissioner Abrams.
I just wanted to take you up on the offer to issue like a one-page guideline about recommended track design. Maybe the one I'm thinking of that the city has is one about residential fencing, like one of these kinds of things. It's a user-friendly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Thanks.
Commissioner Norton.
I wasn't able to be here at the last meeting, so I don't know what was discussed, so I might be asking questions that were discussed, but if you bear with me. I just have two questions. I'm not sure, so regarding Commissioner Abrams' comment, is the suggestion to remove the design details in the draft language and replace it with guidelines, or?
No, it was to add more. There was discussion about rather than, or including, since we have some of the prohibited racks in there, including racks that we do like, and staff recommends having those as guidelines rather than in the requirements of the code. And so we're happy to make a one-pager.
So kind of fewer recommendations to do even better kind of thing. Okay. I wonder about the new requirement to center bikes within the parking space. Wouldn't it be better just to say place the rack in a way so
I'm
that
sorry,
you can
Commissioner
park the bike?
Norton, we cannot hear you. Can
I'm
you
sorry.
Move your mic closer? Almost.
Yeah, I'm just kind of querying, maybe this is a minor thing, but it says center the bike racks, and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be better just to say position the bike rack so you can park a bike, something like that? Because maybe you don't want to center it for some reason, given the site design. See what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I think I'd have to think about.
Sometimes when you make a
Different-
requirement to solve one problem, you've actually created another problem. When what we're trying to get at is position the bike rack so that a bike can be feasibly parked.
Right.
Something like that. So I would suggest kind of rethinking that precise language.
Okay.
From that end. And then the final question I have is about removing the Class A parking requirements. Maybe this was something that was discussed, but I'm wondering if there's a chicken egg problem here. Like, as we improve biking facilities otherwise, will those areas be more used and then we'll regret that we removed the requirement to provide them?
We haven't removed the requirement. We've just decreased it.
You're decreasing it.
So there will still be, I think it's 1 per 10 units is the proposal for downtown.
Instead of, what is it now?
Right now, it's based on square footage. So it's...
So maybe a little better calibrated to how people actually use the spaces. Was this something that you all discussed, or?
Just a little bit, Commissioner Norton, but not at the level of detail that you're at right now.
And I'm just in line with trying to encourage people to use bicycles. I'm wary of reducing requirements to provide space for parking bicycles.
Yeah, right now, it's 1 per 2,500 square feet in the downtown districts. And so, yeah, we would be decreasing it. Now it would be 1 per 10 units. And that is because the existing facilities that we saw, and some of them we thought were good facilities. Some of them had easy access to the exterior of the buildings on the first floor, had usable bike racks in there. And we found that even in the best situations, what staff felt were really good parking facilities, they weren't being fully used. A lot of the bikes were not changed to racks properly, things like that. And in discussion with building managers and people during these site visits, we heard that people weren't bringing their bikes. They're more often walking or using public transit, specifically in the downtown districts.
In the downtown. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners? I just had two things, and thank you, Planner Milleen Cochran, for all of the work that you have done on this, including your site visits and the presentation and reports that you have attached for this effort. One, I wanted to echo Commissioner Abrams' comment around a guide. I particularly like the Boston Post, which is the Circo. One, they are small, it's easy to attach. We don't have to deal with Commissioner Norton's where to center it kind of concern there, but I appreciate your wisdom in putting that in a guide as opposed to the UDC, so that as a new preferred bike post emerges, we wouldn't have to make a UDC change, we could just make a guide change. So +1 to you for that. My other, I have two more things. One, I'll do the feedback that we got from Seth Peterson, which was there any consideration given to covered Class C parking?
That is, in our code, it's Class B parking.
Thank you.
It was a discussion that we did have early on in the ORC if we should only have Class A, only long-term, and only Class C fixed racks not covered. And there was a big push to include covered parking so that our Class B is covered Class C, which is staying, and we have requirements for it.
Great, thank you. And then my bigger concern, which, and I'm sorry, Mr. Leonard, which is around enforcement, where when we talked at the November 5th meeting, it was unclear who does the enforcement. I understand at site development, it is planning, and so the enforcement occurs there. However, once we are in the built environment, it seems as if there is a lack of enforcement. And so can you elucidate me for just a moment, not too long, just a moment, around how enforcement is going to be handled as we make these adjustments?
Well, I want to reiterate something we talked about last time. Changes to the requirements would be prospective, so that means they're not retroactive. They would not retroactively apply to a bike rack that exists in our city today. But they are a zoning standard, so that would be the responsibility of my team to enforce. I will honestly tell you that we are largely a complaint-based enforcement activity. We are not proactively out with site plans to make sure that sites are being maintained in that. But if a complaint is raised, that's how we would do it. I would also say
Can
that—
I pause you there?
Yeah.
Just to interrupt just for 1 second. Could you describe for me, as if I don't know how to complain about a bike rack that is non-conforming, how I would go about doing that?
So we have gotten zoning concerns raised via the A2 Click Fix system. We have gotten emails to our planning@a2gov.org email. We've gotten phone calls to our department. They come in a variety of manners. The last piece I would say is that it is a question of prioritization where we put our resources. Is enforcing bike parking compared to enforcing signage, compared to enforcing outdoor lighting, compared to reviewing permits. It's just an ongoing resource question. But ultimately, I would say that enforcement of these bike racks would fall on me and my team.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leonard. Are there any other comments from commissioners? Seeing none, are you ready to vote? Mr. Leonard, could you do a roll call vote, or can we do a voice vote?
A roll call vote, please, as an ordinance.
We shall do a roll call vote.
All right, so this is the proposed text amendment as presented in your packet this evening. Commissioner Weich?
Yes.
Commissioner Abrams?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Dish?
Yes.
Commissioner Weatherby?
Yes.
Commissioner Adams?
Yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Its next stop is to appear on a city council agenda.
Thank you, and thanks again, Planner Milleen Cochran, for such an excellent revision to our bike infrastructure and policy. Are we going to be joined by Planner Bennett, Mr. Leonard?
We would. Would it be okay to take a brief recess?
Yes, that's why I was going to take a recess, is we were going to be joined. So we will recess for 10 minutes, and we'll be back at 6:48. All right, we are now back in session, and we want to move on to agenda item number 10, which is regular business. There is none. And that takes us to agenda item 11A, other business, comprehensive plan review period discussion. The Planning Commission will review a compiled list of edits for draft 3 of the comprehensive plan, similar to the previous rounds of edits. Public comments accepted through the project page are found on engage.a2gov.org are also included in the packet, and we will start with a staff presentation from Planner Bennett. Welcome.
Good evening. I wanted to start with the slides that are in your packet. These are the same that I presented on October 7th, so I wasn't going to go into too much detail, but I wanted it public to remind everyone of our timeline. We are currently in the review period. That's the state mandated period that this plan has to be open before it can be approved. So this is the Planning Commission's first meeting where we are discussing the comprehensive land use plan during that period, which is now, don't quote me on this, but I think like a 78-day period. We added about 2 weeks because it fell right before the holidays. So we extended that through to January 5th. So that slideshow starts with the timeline, meaning that January 5th is when this closes, and then it's not until February or March, as of now, that we would be holding the public hearings for these to be approved. So we are still very much in draft mode, and we'll be discussing the Planning Commission's edits tonight. I also broke down sort of how the plan is organized for the public. If you haven't familiarized yourself yet with the plan, you can see the breakdown chapter by chapter of how the plan is laid out. And then the last couple slides show all of the major changes that have been made since draft 1. And those are in part from discussion with the Planning Commission, in part changes from council that were requested, and from public comment. So with that, I think we'll be spending the majority of our time here this evening going over the edits. These were formatted similarly to the last round of edits. So I reviewed all of the commissioners that submitted and organized them by discussion, which is where I think we'll be spending the majority of our time. And then the second category is staff-supported edits. Those edits still came from the Planning Commission, but staff feels that they have enough information and are in agreement and will make those. Unless you all feel like one of those needs to be brought up to discussion, then we can always discuss those as well. And then the last category is factual. It's mainly typos or you got this date wrong that we agree with, and we will make those as well for the next round. So my plan was just to start at the top where it says discussion and go through and take notes on what you all say. And if we do get to an area where we don't have consensus, we will rely on what we did the last round of edits, is do a straw poll vote so that staff has direction on what to do after the meeting.
Great. So in order to help facilitate our movement through these edits, I will not recognize any commissioner. If you want to speak, just unmute and speak so that we can move along. If we get bogged down in a discussion, I will interrupt the discussion and ask that a motion be proposed and seconded, and then we will take a vote at the table to adopt the language that we need to give to staff. Does anyone at the table have a question or clarifying point, or would prefer a different process? Okay, with that, I will turn it back to you.
Sure. So the first two edits have to do with historic districts. That's suggested to be on page 58 and 60. And I suppose as I introduce them, I will let the planning commissioner who submitted them, if they feel comfortable, to explain more about where they're coming from. But I think the purpose of these two comments are to address some of the comments we've heard from the public about wanting more in the comprehensive plan about historic districts.
I'm the one who am proposing these amendments, and that's exactly what they're doing. We've heard a lot of comments about the lack of attention in the plan to the historic districts. I agree with that statement, and I also found the kind of quasi-policy statement on page 60 to be confusing and not very helpful. So the first set of comments I'm proposing would go on page 58, which if you look on the draft plan are key considerations relating to neighborhoods. It seemed like an appropriate place to me to put them, although Ms. Bennett just pointed out to me they probably maybe could go other places. I'm not really fixed on that. But the purpose of these amendments are to provide factual statements about the relationship, how historic districts work, and what their relationship is to the plan. I don't know, I'm hoping that you all had a chance to review these before, so I don't know that I need to read them verbatim. I think they're just factual statements that provide that clarification. So I would like to have them added for that purpose. The second recommendation is on page 60. Here I'm proposing, I will read this one. I think the way this statement is currently framed, frankly, is confusing to me. And I don't especially understand, again, the last sentence, the way this paragraph finishes off. I don't understand what message it's trying to send or what point it's trying to make or what it's suggesting. So I tried to provide a more clear statement about what we're proposing and how we're viewing this and the role it plays in the plan. So my recollection is that we had already agreed as a commission to make the statement that the plan doesn't take a position on the modification to or creation of new districts. But then to recognize, so I guess what I'm adding is then to recognize that the district boundaries and requirements will continue to follow the boundaries and standards established by the Historic District Commission following the process that you follow for historic districts. And then the next statement, or the final statement, is the statement that the city should support opportunities for increased missing middle housing density within historic districts where, when appropriate, consistent both with the goal of increasing density throughout the city and consistent with the Historic District Commission standards and guidelines for modifications. Here I'm thinking of instances, I'm thinking of things like the dry cleaning place that was just removed, and now we've got an opportunity to put in some homes that were approved by the Historic District Commission. There will be changes to the historic districts that open the opportunity to provide some density, and as long as they can be done consistent with the Historic District guidelines, I think that it's entirely consistent with us to provide support for that kind of modification. So again, instead of rambling, I'll just say I'm putting these forward to provide some clarification that I think folks want to see, that I think would add to the plan, and as an informational docket and a more precise and clear statement about how we see the relationship between the plan and the district's guidelines. So I'm asking that these modifications be approved. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Yep. Please don't look to me to be acknowledged to speak. Please unmute and speak.
Maybe just a question about process. What's the process by which we would say yes or no? We're voting on these?
No, we're going to talk about them first. If we get bogged down in talking about them, then we will go to someone will propose a motion. We're not quite there from where Commissioner Norton is. And then we'll take a vote to get precise edits to staff, so staff doesn't have to discern what we want to do. So we'll start with Commissioner Adams, then come back to you, and then see if any other commissioners want to weigh in. Commissioner Adams.
I just want to say I support these changes. They're well drafted and consistent, I think, with where I'm at from a policy perspective. Just staying neutral, respecting our role as separate from the Historic District Commission, the fact that we don't have a record, and we didn't set our process up to generate the sort of record that you would need to have to not sort of be expressly neutral on the boundaries of these districts.
And I think that this provides additional explanation for their existence, what they are, what we're saying about them. And no, it's a much better record to stand on.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Commissioner Abrams. Oh, sorry.
You are chairing or not chairing?
I did say at the beginning, Commissioner Adams, then Abrams,
Okay,
and
then
then
Weatherby.
we would check with everyone else. We'll do that, and then I'll stop chairing.
I'll toss it to you. No, I also support this. I think maybe I would like us to just clarify where the first one is going to go, because 58 is not an appropriate place, since that's about retail. So maybe Planner Bennett, if you have an idea about where it should go, it would just be helpful for us to know what it is, where it goes. That's all. But I support them generally.
Commissioner Weatherby.
The baton has been passed. Yes. I just wanted to agree. I think this is helpful. I especially like the while not part of a local zoning code, because our historic districts do have underlying zoning now. So having them have underlying zoning in the future is helpful, and this doesn't still change their historic districtness. So I think this is very helpful to add. So I agree.
There would just be one. I think there's a typo.
You need to unmute so that we can hear you, and it can be in the public record.
We're not so casual that we aren't unmuting. Just the word into either needs to be close in to downtown or just close to downtown in the first sentence of the second paragraph.
I can't.
Yep.
I think that's an appropriate change.
Anyone else? Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Thank you. Thank you for drafting these, Commissioner Norton. Similarly, we've heard a lot of feedback about historic districts, and I've been struggling with sort of the appropriate way to take that into account, and I really like this, particularly the rewrite of the paragraph on page 60, and similar to Commissioner Abrams, I think for the edit recommended for page 58, we just need to figure out the best place for it. I don't know if it's a box or if it's just in a different section, but I'm also very supportive of these changes.
For my part, I also echo Commissioner Abrams' comment around page 58. It doesn't feel like that's the right place for it to go, because a lot of the content that you are proposing in those two paragraphs is present on page 60 in the third paragraph. So historic district boundaries and development will continue to follow standards and design guidelines established by the Historic District Commission. So I wonder if there are, or if you're open to just merging everything into this section on page 60.
I think my intent was for the first paragraph to be just informational and provide background, and that for the second statement is more the strategy, which is what's being presented on page 60. Planner Bennett suggested maybe the stuff that I was suggesting for page 58 would go better earlier in the plan in the
snapshot
section.
Or Ann Arbor Today.
So that's where I was struggling, because there's not an obvious place for it to go. So I wondered, I understand the background. I wondered if that wasn't a footnote or in the index. So when we first introduced historic districts, then there's a footnote to the paragraph that you're proposing for page 58 that then explains that. And then the edits that you're proposing for page 60 can be the edits that are being proposed there, since you're replacing the content there as we approach the strategy.
Okay, now I've lost you.
So I started by saying I don't think your proposals for page 58 should go on page 58.
Yeah.
Then you explained that you felt like this was an introduction.
It's background information that's like the rest of the plan, like the snapshot is presenting history and background to frame then the goals and the strategies that come later in the plan.
And so then my suggestion was, if it is background information or snapshot information, there isn't a clear logical place that I can see in the plan earlier where it would go. It would have to replace something, or we'd have to add a new page to get that much text into the plan as it's presented. So I was then proposing, when we first reference a historic district, then there is a footnote to what you have proposed as that explainer.
So you would put all of that text into a footnote?
Not in a footnote on the page. It would be an endnote, I guess, for this document. But because I'm struggling to find where to put that text, because it doesn't fit the section that it's being proposed in. The section that you have referenced, the snapshot, I don't see a clear place for it to go there. If someone wants to suggest something, I'm happy to entertain that. That was my recommendation.
Yeah, I would rather maybe create a separate heading in the history, positioning this plan in history. I don't know that we need to worry about formatting right now, right? I think we're going to be making changes that are going to require reformatting things here and there.
Well, I just don't know where it's going. I guess
I'd be
that's my
happy to let
point.
staff and the consultants figure out
Yeah.
where
And
to put
then-
it if we say where we think it's appropriate in terms of the
And then
content.
we would come back to it and approve it when it comes back as another edit.
I don't.
Another
Is
option.
that ever happening? I don't think that's happening, is it?
It would be coming back to you with the change made
Yeah,
in
we
the
would have
adoption
to,
draft.
we have to see the changes that were made before we would advance it another time. So I'm just
But that
concerned
would be
about
true of
work.
any change that gets made this evening.
Yeah, and I'm concerned that it comes back in a place that doesn't make sense, and then that prevents us from going forward. So if we could, at the table, find a place for it, then I feel okay with that. I don't think I'm saying it shouldn't be present. I'm just trying to figure out where
I'm
it
a
should be
little
present.
hesitant to have it go in as a footnote because I think it'll get lost. But I'm happy for the staff to figure out where they think is the most logical place for it to go.
Okay, Commissioner Weatherby.
I'm wondering about on page 52, where it talks about key considerations for housing development, and then there's the map that's on page 53 that's less than 13% of the city's land is available for redevelopment, that it might fit somewhere in there under housing development. I don't know.
So on the left of page 52.
Yeah.
But we would probably have to edit what you've proposed to get it to fit in that space.
Yeah, but I wouldn't change important text for the sake of formatting. I think the planning consultant can play with the formatting to make work what we need to have done.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I'm guessing there will be other substantive changes that are going to muck up the formatting. So I think the formatting is the least of, that's something that we can figure out after the phase. Once we figure out where the right place for this information to go would be.
So I want to check the table. Are we okay with it going on page 52? As Commissioner Weatherby just suggested.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
And maybe it could.
We could also make a case for
I think it makes sense to go in a
51.
key consideration, and it could get its own little kind of subheading, historic districts or something like that.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
It could go in 51 because it's also what we've heard.
Yep.
And so that would feel very natural to me, and there's a lot of space there. So both my
Yeah.
concerns get addressed. So can we get to agreement on either page 51 or 52, and we'll allow staff to decide?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think we're good.
52. It's not what we heard, it's a factual statement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, just to be clear, the only edit then is for this, what we've been talking about on page 58. The one on page 60 is okay as is?
Because it's replacing.
Okay.
It's going to replace the text that's there.
Okay. Great. Are we ready for the next one?
I think we are.
Okay. The next edit covers a few different pages 60, 113, and 116, and comes with some renderings on page 11. I think we have briefly discussed this before, but didn't have much time to, so.
Renderings. Okay.
I'll let
All right.
Commissioner
This is me
Abrams.
back again. I think we actually did discuss this, or I raised it and it didn't, there wasn't support for it at the table. This time it's been shared again, mostly because I shared it with City Council as well.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can I pause you for a second? Planner Bennett, is it possible for you to share your screen with the audience, just because they
Yes.
have no idea what we're talking about.
Yes.
Thank you.
But this is just laying out.
I'm sorry, one more time. And to be specific, I'm talking about the renderings.
Yes, I
Okay,
need to
great.
log into the Zoom first, so it'll
you'll
be
need
a
to talk.
minute.
Can you
but yeah.
pause for a second? So she can do- Thank you.
Well, can I just describe what it is? Okay. Okay. I just sent it to City Council. Have you not received it? Not personal.
Oh. Who did that?
Oh. That's fine. I just sent it to this. Yeah.
Very slyly over there.
Do you want to go to
I think
page
Commissioner
11?
White wanted to go
I
to
would
the
like to see
bottom,
the rendering.
the actual
so that as
house
Commissioner
diagrams.
Abrams is discussing, we can have a visual, please.
Yeah, I mean, I can maybe more just be here to answer questions than to explain it all again. But my general comment here is that currently the plan limits by right development to triplexes, which I understand to be a limit that City Council asked us to write into the plan. And as a way of making sure that anything bigger than that is something that would have very, particular constraints and limitations. And we typically regulate in residential neighborhoods by area, height, and placement. So we have setbacks, we have height limits. And these diagrams are just meant to show that actually a quadplex fits, I think, into a kind of into the same building volume as a duplex or a single-family home. And that a triplex, if you think about it as 3 stacked apartments, would probably lead to a taller building than a quadplex, which could be a 2-story building divided into 4. And from a design perspective, it just makes sense to kind of split things symmetrically. So I wanted to put on the table the possibility that where it currently says triplex, we change that to say 4plex or quadplex. That happens 3 times on page 60, 113, and 116. And I maybe also just want to underscore that this is not an argument for increased density in terms of building mass, but actually keeping the same building mass, but just having something that makes more sense. The triplex limit to me always seemed arbitrary. I didn't really understand where it came from. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about it.
So I'll start, and just since I don't have to put myself in front of City Council, and just say I think that the triplex is it's random, and it is not based in any particular fact other than that that's what council determined people were okay with, so that's their right. And I'm not sure that if we send this forward in a quadplex, that I think council will just change it and people will be upset. And so while I agree that I never understood the triplex either, but I think that has been voiced as
Not going to be the right.
something that council
Oh boy.
feels that people are more okay with than a quadplex. And so I think that's why it's in there, not because architecturally it makes sense or
Oh.
it just is sort of the,
This formatting is.
it's kind of a thing that council has asked us to include. And I don't know that any of us are particularly excited about it, but changing it, I don't think is going to make people happy.
Yeah, I don't think we have any policy role to play on this question. I think it's well argued, but I think it's settled at this point.
It feels like you all are privy to conversations I'm not.
No, I just reread the council's instruction early before the meeting, and it was clear that duplexes and triplexes would be permitted by right, with other larger types permitted where
It was
appropriate.
very clear, which is why I sent this also to council, because I hope somebody will read it on council and understand the rationale. But I guess maybe I would just put in a voice for us making the decision we think makes the most sense according to what this body thinks makes sense for the plan, not something which is not making a change because we aren't certain about whether or not that change would be accepted at the council table. But like, if it doesn't make sense to any of us and we think it's arbitrary and illogical, I feel weird supporting it.
So these drawings are so great. I think you sent them to us first because they clearly show that from the perspective of things that people are worried about, and height is a big one of them, a triplex is worse. But is this not the kind of thing that would be appropriate to revisit when we are thinking about setbacks and lot, area, whatever, coverage and stuff? Wouldn't it be great to show them and say, look how efficiently you can get more density with a quadplex than you can with a triplex?
I think the problem then is it's already written into the plan that only triplexes are allowed by right. So it's a done deal.
Although other larger where appropriate.
No, I know, but this is about by right.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments? If we can wait for a second, from commissioners. Okay, Mr. Leonard?
Yeah, I just want to state the obvious, my apologies. Plan making is complex, and I think these are very, very illustrative, but I also think that there are scenarios where triplexes actually are realized on 2 stories rather than 3 stories. I do think that you could likely, you're an architect, obviously I'm not, but I think it's probably viable that quadplex could potentially be 6 units. I think that there's a lot of scenarios that can happen in there. And I do want to just recognize that I agree with the statements. I think the city council's been pretty clear, and they do need to adopt the plan. They've asked this body to consider that. And that policy making, it can be messy at times. It may not be always based on a schematic or the like. So I guess I would just put a vote in for the commission. I know that there's a myriad of thoughts about whether triplexes or frankly quadplexes is adequate. But I would just remind that I think this is a great leap forward for our plan, and it's also putting us in a position where we can consider future amendments to the plan as we start realizing some of these changes at whatever scale in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Anyone else? For my part, I think I want to say, I think you are correct that the body makes the recommendation, and I think we did. I think we recommended this in greater. And then through the revision process, council sent resolutions saying, we reject your recommendations and we're asking for this. So I feel like we did communicate to the body what we thought was legible for this. And then council heard that and then coupled it with their responsibilities to their constituents, and then sent back a communication, which I think I voted against when it came back to the table. So I hear you, and it all makes sense. And I think we are constrained, but I don't think we are doing it in the last structure of the way that I think you were unpacking it. Like, if it doesn't make sense to us, I think we did send it in a way that did make sense to us. And then we got feedback that said, we hear you, we reject that, this is what we're asking for. And then we had a robust debate, because you presented this presentation at one of our debates or conversations around the plan, and it wasn't adopted at the table at that time. But I am happy to entertain a motion to reconsider right now.
No, I don't think there's support for it. We don't have to do a motion. I think, and I know that I already presented it to you all, and it's really just back here because I sent it to council and CC'd planning.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
Sure. Just point of clarification, in page 113, it does say under preferred building form, I'm on point number 2, duplexes and triplexes permitted as primary uses with reform to dimensional standards to accommodate them. So when we talk about primary uses, for some reason I thought it had said by right, but regardless, would that mean that as a primary use, like a quadplex couldn't be considered as like a special exception use, or just for clarification purposes?
Yeah, the way I interpret the plan is primary is plan speak for permitted.
Yeah.
So I think that the message that I think that this body originally forwarded as discussed to the council, both at the original and then it modified, was an intention that triplexes at a minimum should be easy to attain. So by primary uses, that I interpret that plan to be saying that those should be permitted uses. They don't require a discretionary level of approval. But like everything else, it has to meet the area height placement standards that you subsequently establish for how that is made. But the city wouldn't have any agency to say that no, for that property, you can't do a triplex. If you meet the standards, it's a permitted use, just like a duplex or a single family today.
Gotcha. So again, I think the dimensional standards that you've put forth, Commissioner Abram, makes sense to me. That being said, again, the structure by which council has engaged us and instructed us, I think is also clear as well. But I also want to just point out the language says duplexes, triplexes permitted as primary uses. Ultimately, what the UDC says will govern, right? So we'll have to go through that kind of like wrangling exercise. So I don't see this as so I'm not sure that this is the change. I wouldn't necessarily support it. I want to just clarify some of the language on 113. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Is that an appropriate use of the term use? Isn't it a residential use?
Well, we currently, in our current code, we have a multitude of different residential uses defined. A single family is as a distinct use from a duplex, which is a distinct use from multifamily.
Okay.
All right. Any other commissioners? On to the edits on singular 73.
This is mine. Speaking of arbitrary, so this was in Economy and Opportunity chapter about the startups and space for them, and I just feel like, where'd it go? So these companies are a combination of biopharma, med devices, physical, non-life science products, and digital, which will need a combination of facilities as they scale and will likely need to be near a North Campus. This felt vestigial from when we had the Plymouth Innovation Zone, I think that we cut a long time ago, so I would like to just cut the last part of that because I think really they could locate anywhere. I don't know why they would, unless there's some rationale that I'm not thinking of, why they would likely need to be near North Campus.
Do we have any comments here?
I think that probably is in relation to the university's 2030 plan or 20 whatever year plan. But I agree with you. Like, I don't know that
we need to limit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean.
Okay.
I support it.
I support it. Okay. Great. Michelle, I think we have support there. Is it possible for either you or Mr. Leonard to have the plan up as we are looking at the pages, not the edits, but the actual plan, so that it can be seen in context, especially for those who might be sitting here wondering what we're talking about?
Okay. So.
And while they do that, does the person who suggested the edit on 111 want to introduce it?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Dish.
Yes. So this edit pertains to a teeny dot of yellow on Plymouth Road that's bounded by hub on either side. And you can see, so there's an aerial photo of it in the comment, but not a picture of the of where it is on the flum. I do suggest this change, but I also raise this change as an opportunity, but perhaps Commissioner or Chair Weich, you've already addressed this problem, but we did receive a lot of comments about what happens where transition abuts hub, and does hub gradually just get eaten away because everything that's, I'm sorry, does transition get eaten away because everything that's adjacent to hub makes it possible to make more of, to extend hub further into transition? This is extremely, I'm finding it difficult to express what I mean. But people have, I think one person characterized it as a mission creep into transition. And I think this is a problem with the transition district, because even as it's described in the plan, it, on either side of it, in that little linear map that we have where transition is actually shown to lie between residential and hub, on both sides of that drawing it says this can go as high as hub, depending on where it is. I mean, so transition is the grab bag category. We've talked about this before. I know that you could argue that, well, we should just hub them because they're between two hubs. I know hub isn't a verb, but but they're residential now, and it is, you know, it definitely doesn't make people happy to feel that there's going to be a huge jump in density in their neighborhood. And then this is just kind of one of those peculiar little bits of Ann Arbor, you know, that you also can find along Washtenaw, where there's a service road that separates a little residential bit from the major transit road. And that's what's happening here. So I am just requesting that this little piece that it remain residential, even though it's awkwardly positioned.
Okay, let's have a small discussion about this.
Fire away. I think it should stay transition or be hub. The whole north side of Plymouth Road is hub or transition all the way down to what looks like kind of the Traver area. And I just don't see a basis to not recommend a higher density use there long term, understanding that the built environment is going to remain, but I worry that I'm not sure that the logic of, I think, how we did this, I don't understand an argument for deviating from that for this little pocket when, again, it's sort of uninterrupted hub transition for what looks like a mile and a half. That just doesn't feel like the right planning result.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams.
I think this leads me to ask a larger question about the land use map and the comments earlier about a GIS version or a parcel specific version versus the blobby one that we have now. Mm-hmm. And what the thoughts are there from planning staff about when this becomes what is that process? Like if I look at the 2009 land use map, it's delineated by parcel, what the recommended land use is.
Well, to be clear, we can do either, but I approach this, and thus the commission has approached it, by not focusing on a parcel-based future land use map because of a lot of conversations about trying to communicate character of corridors and areas, short of always knowing exactly how the specific aspects of those might be realized. Are they going to be realized on a frontage-only basis? Are they going to be realized on a block-by-block basis? And the plan specifically builds in flexibility for the city to interpret flexibility in those boundaries. And that flexibility can be built in whether it's a parcel-based or not, but not having it be parcel-based I think, more effectively communicates that otherwise a hard and fast line on the map is not absolute.
Would it be possible to write a sentence or two at the bottom of this map that explains that logic? Like if the idea is that the graphic sensibility indicates an approach to flexibility, discernment, discretion, adaptability, resilience or something, I think that that would be important to communicate, as opposed to it being misperceived as laziness, lack of commitment, wishy-washy-ness.
I think we've got that on 135. I don't know if we want to move it up, but it's there where it says, this is unlike zoning, which is parcel by parcel. This is broader, more flexible. The map is designed with intentional flexibility, allowing certain boundaries to be fluid rather than prescriptive.
Maybe we just copy paste it and put it also with the map.
So I'm tracking two things. One, Commissioner Dish started by asking for the transition interruption between Hub on Plymouth to be recategorized as residential. And then your comment then scaled back out from the entire, that section to the whole map to try to address what you have articulated, it looks like. So I want to track the second thing first, and then I'll go back to Commissioner Dish. So it looks like there's support at the table to take the sentence from, leave it on page 131, but add it to page 111. Is there support for that?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee? Okay.
131?
135.
135.
It's the future land map represents the values and physical form, dot, 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 dot. Okay, so now can we come back to Commissioner Dish's original request, which was to take the little tiny section on Plymouth between the two hubs, which is currently labeled transition, and to recategorize it as residential. Commissioner Adams said no, to summarize his initial comments.
Yes, I believe that is what he said.
And so can we hear from other commissioners to give staff some guidance? Start with Commissioner Lee.
Yeah, I was just thinking about where else in the city has this kind of a service drive. So I think there's one like near, actually, Georgetown on the southern side, kind of on Eisenhower and Georgetown area. I also think there's another one on Scioto Church where there's kind of a service drive. And when I actually looked at both of those, for example, like on the Eisenhower one, it's actually transition, and then on Scioto Church, looks like it's kind of residential. To me, there's the context of like the zoning actually dictates it more so than the actual physical form of like the service drive itself, as I'm looking at just the way that these two, and the granularity to me is more so about like what's the continuity of zones. In this particular instance, while I understand kind of what's proffered from this neighborhood, I would actually tend to think that because it's across the street from the U of M Research Center and bounded by Hub, even with the concept of that service drive, that it stands more rationale based on its context would still be transition. So I'm kind of on the Commissioner Adams train.
So you're a no. All right.
Yeah.
But it does depend on how you look at it, because it is the end of a strip of residential. And there is another service drive on Nixon Road, just to the west and north of this one, that is also residential. And so from what it looks like if you're walking, there's two things pretty close to each other, one which is transition and the other which is residential. And you're walking along if you're walking south from the north, you're walking in residential and you run into a little strip of transition between two hubs. So it's kind of, if you look at it from moving north to south, why doesn't residential just continue? And if you look at it moving along Plymouth Road, which you're not actually along because there's a service drive, you feel like it should be Hub. So I think that this is complicated. I mean, I just think this is a very weird little piece that has 15 homes, there will be, 15 unhappy people. And will feel inconsistent with the Nixon piece.
Thank you. Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
So I think this is the angst that we're hearing from a lot of people when they look at this map and they see something different than what their property is zoned today. But when I think about, Plymouth is one of the major corridors, and when I think about the future of Plymouth Road, 25, 50 years in the future, while it exists today as like 15 single-family homes, I'm hopeful that in the future it'll be a more built-up corridor, and that unfortunately or fortunately means that those homes would need to be redeveloped. So I would almost say it should be hub, but I certainly would prefer to leave it as transition rather than downzone it. So I guess I'm also saying no.
You are. We can take a vote too, if. But let's hear comments from Norton, Weatherby, Abrams. You don't have to make one. I'm just asking so that we know where you are.
I support leaving it transition.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree it's hard. I grew up in this area, and this seems like a neighborhood to me, and those houses are a neighborhood, and it refers back to the neighborhood behind it, and there wasn't all the stuff in front of it. It was a neighborhood, and it was all going to be neighborhood houses. And so it's a little, but that is sort of not the way, now it's a small piece. And I could see going either way.
Commissioner Norton?
I understand the motivation behind the proposal, but I think this piece is distinguishable from the other on Nixon Road because it's along a major corridor that's going to be mostly hub. So I'm inclined to not support the change.
Okay. Commissioner Dish, would you like to propose a motion?
No.
Okay. There's no support. That takes us to 112, 113.
That's me. So this is the 2-page chart laying out the categories and their different features. And I would like to propose that for transition, under preferred building form, we delete the text in parentheses at the first bullet, which says high-rise if adjacent to hub. So it would just say low to high-rise buildings. And also, for bullet 2, we delete where it says taller and more intense near hub. This feels like a degree of specificity that isn't helpful. It's actually kind of confusing and not necessary.
All right. Is there support?
I support, and I actually made a similar requested change. Just, I want to be clear that we taper based on proximity to residential. That feels like the tapering mechanism, and the hub language in there was a little confusing, so.
Okay. Let me ask differently. Is there any opposition? All right. You okay, Commissioner Dish?
Oh, I'm totally fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I had lost my...
No, you're fine. I wanted to make sure if you were looking for it, you had enough time. All right, let's go on to 113. There's support to adopt that change.
I think the next one's me, but does anyone else think it's them?
It was me. I think it was
so
me.
I had a very similar thing, but you go first.
There were a couple that overlapped, and I just put one in if they were the same.
I think let me go find my table here. Where's my table? Hold on.
You should be right there.
Zoning, yeah. So here, unlike how we treat the other categories, we say we're going to amend these legacy districts to execute hub, and I just don't think we need to be that specific. And I'm not sure that this is all the way on the right, third row, where it says amend D1, D2, and TC1. The residential and transition both contemplate the potential for new districts, and I think that's possible here. So I think we just need to treat it the same way. It's possible it'll be new. It's possible we'll just amend those three, but I don't know the answer to that from where I sit today.
So your proposal is to remove it?
To handle it like we do the other two categories and say it will either be new districts or amendments to D1, D2, and TC1.
But not the specificity of D1, D2, and TC1.
Yeah, I just want to stay agnostic on execution.
Okay.
I submitted almost the same exact comment, and the language that I proposed was, quote, new hub district, parentheses, S, close parentheses, that refer to existing parameters in D1, D2, and TC1. Do you want me to repeat that? New hub district that refers to existing parameters in D1, D2, and TC1. I was just following the model of the two above.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I was going to go after that S. Because, I just want.
It's there for residential and mixed use, so I brought it in for hub.
To be clear, we're talking about the column that says zoning.
Yeah, so where it currently says amend D1, D2, and TC1.
So just replacing it with new
hub districts that refer to existing parameters in D1, D2, and TC1.
Okay, but the way you're saying that does not seem to be to mimic how they are discussed in the others under zoning. They don't refer to any other zones at all. They just describe how they would, some of the changes that might need to be made.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to split the difference, assuming that we will and should refer to those.
But if you think we can, if
the direction is you just want that to reflect what the other ones say, would you be okay if we came up with language for that? Like we removed the amend D1, D2, and TC1 that was voted to be removed, but then the way we fill it in mimics the way that the other columns are written.
100%.
Without coming up with the exact wording right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Any opposition to that? All right, let's keep going. You all are doing such a great job. 115, 116. This was a staff question.
Oh, it was a staff question because there were two comments regarding dimensional standards that I thought could be a larger discussion because one wanted to, I think, remove the word approximately, and one wanted to add the word maximum. And so I thought maybe one is trying to generalize more and one was trying to be more specific. And so I wanted to see overall, how do you all feel about how we want to be writing about these parameters at this stage? So yeah, on page 115, it says to remove the word approximately.
It's actually to add it, isn't it? Well, or it's just about being consistent. So on the previous, where we were a minute ago, up there, under preferred building form for residential, it says approximately.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't say it on the next page. So there's just an inconsistency. The question still stands that you're asking. I'm just not sure whether we are adding it here or removing it there.
I mean, if it's in the table, does it need to be in the chart with that level?
You mean the inconsistency doesn't bother you?
Because it's in the table. The table is more specific. The chart is like a graph type of thing. And so it felt like a edit for space as opposed to intent of the district. And so as long as, I mean, maybe we could just take a note that the intent of the district is detailed in the table on 112 and 113. Because otherwise we would need to add the approximate that is from 113 onto the table or onto the graph to have them match.
Is that what everyone?
No, that's not what everyone. I'm just trying to see if we can. Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
Just from a qualifier standpoint, if you look at the text on the bottom right, it actually already makes that disclaimer that this remains intentionally flexible rather than prescriptive. So I don't know that there is an inconsistency, even if that qualifier of approximate doesn't exist. That I think that paragraph already provides.
So two people had this concern. If you want to make sure you are heard now, this is the time. All right, we will assume that you have been satisfied.
Well, no, I would. I'm not satisfied. I think it's a lot to ask people to read the fine print at the bottom right or refer to the chart and know that the chart is more
So you want
specific,
approximate.
whatever. I think just adding the word approximately on 115 makes it consistent with the chart. That's what I would vote for.
So small scale, 3 stories.
Approximately 3 stories and under, which is what it says.
What you want to
Correct.
recommend. Is
Yeah.
there support?
Yes. I think it's good.
Yes, yes.
I think it's good because then if
All right,
people
there
choose
is
one or
support.
the other, then it's going to say the same.
I didn't have the comment about maximum. That wasn't me, so I don't know.
All right.
I don't see where it's supposed to go.
Who's the maximum?
I think that was actually Commissioner Mills, who's not here.
All right. Well, we're sorry, Commissioner Mills.
Should I leave that to the 16th?
No, I don't think we should. I don't think there's any support at the table to add the maximum.
Okay.
Is there any support at the table to add the maximum? Sorry, I don't want to make assumptions.
No.
Okay, so I think we received it and it
Okay.
didn't get any support.
Okay.
All right, we're on to 118. This is the short-term rentals that
Yes.
Mr. Monroe brought up during his comments.
I would love if this commissioner spoke up because there was no rationale, so any context that can be provided. And I think this is in reference to the resolution that council passed in July that asked us to explicitly look at the impact of short-term rentals on our housing, and if it is, well, now I'm paraphrasing the way I remember, if it does have a large impact, that we should consider in the transition land use category having some limits. And so I think this commissioner is asking, should we only limit that to transition?
Wasn't the logic of it being in transition that we already restricted in residential?
Yes, it is already restricted in
Right.
residential, but some previously zoned R districts will come into transition and now be subject to something that they previously were not subject to. So that's the movement, and then the resistance is there anything to protect that, I guess?
And then we say restrictions on short-term rental uses in transition should be explored during zoning revision.
That's what we would say, yes.
Right.
But the request is that it go in the plan.
But that's in the plan.
No, it's in the plan.
Great, so then.
I think well said.
Is it?
I think should that same comment be in
Do we want to
hub
affirm?
and residential?
Do we want to affirm it in residential is the question.
Well, because residential's already restricted.
Yeah, I think it's.
No, I know, it's just, do we want to affirm it here in the comp plan that that's something that's important? Because clearly the people aren't aware that it's already restricted in residential, because we received multiple comments about people telling us we should restrict short-term rentals in residential.
A statement somewhere clarifying where it's allowed and where we think it should be reconsidered would be really helpful. I'm not,
Is that in?
and
Go ahead, Commissioner Lee, sorry.
I thought it said restrictions on short-term rental uses in transition should be explored. And right now, just to clarify my understanding, in principal dwelling units, like in order to do not an ADU, I'm sorry, STR anywhere, you have to be there has to be your principal residence. No, please.
In
Not in resi.
In residential.
Okay, gotcha. So there's existing UDC regulations, and that will continue regardless in resi. And the question here is, should we make it explicit that in transition it should be explored? Is that what you're saying, Commissioner Norton?
let me step back and say
Yeah.
short-term rentals can be problematic for 2 reasons. One is they can be disruptive to neighbors, and neighbors don't like them. And the second is that if you're taking valuable housing stock out of the housing stock so that people can rent their homes, that's problematic, especially when we're trying to do everything we can to increase the availability of affordable housing and market rate or missing middle housing. I'm not so troubled that because we deal with it a certain way now, we have to continue dealing with that way. I mean, here's our opportunity to revisit this topic and think about it in the plan and maybe revisit the zoning code. And if there are places that are currently doing short-term rentals, they may qualify as non-conforming uses that would be allowed to continue. But that doesn't mean we should be precluded from saying we're not going to allow it anymore. So I guess what I was hoping for was a more broad statement that we should study the issue of short-term rentals and its potential impact on citywide and rethink it as we revisit the zoning code, where it should be allowed and where not allowed. I think we could make a stronger statement that this is an issue we need to pay attention to. I don't think we can or should resolve it right now for the plan, but I think we could say in the plan, we need to study this and deal with it.
Is it true that R4C can have STRs?
Only principal residents.
Only
STRs.
principal, okay, so that's every single R category.
Correct.
Absolutely. Okay, yeah, we probably should.
But where does that live? Does that live in the plan, or is that
No, it lives
inside
in
the
the UDC.
council?
That lives in the UDC.
But isn't that a policy decision from council that then comes down to the zoning?
The whole plan is a set of policy decisions.
I
that we're
understand, but
recommending.
I'm specifically asking about this because this was initiated by council. They made changes to short-term rentals in the city.
So I think one of the things that is unique and why this language is present in this category but not others is the city has done this evaluation in the past. We years ago conducted a series of engagement sessions. We looked at a lot of models and we came to our current regulatory framework. I 100% agree that doesn't mean that it's the regulatory framework forever. However, I do want to point out that something that's unique about the transition land use is in this plan's efforts to consolidate land use districts, a very fundamental aspect of our current regulatory framework is where commercial uses are allowed, specifically where hotels are allowed, short-term rentals have broad flexibility because they are seen as a very similar use. Where residential uses live, they are restricted to only being principal residents. The transition zone is going to be a zone that marries together some aspects of both of those categories. And that's one reason why I think that it might be more appropriate and frankly a more difficult decision for us to figure out the regulatory framework for short-term rentals and transition than perhaps relying on our current framework for residential or hub.
Okay, Commissioner Ali, go ahead.
Just to clarify, it does say right here, restrictions on short-term rental uses in transition should be explored during the zoning revision. And I think the question right now at hand is, should the in transition be struck so that we're looking at it citywide? Is that, because that's
No,
what
'cause
this thing says.
Would we bring that forward into hub?
Yeah, that's really, I suppose, the question at hand here, but I'm not, because this says, does the impact of STRs need to be considered in other land use categories outside of transition?
Right, but it's established in residential.
Yeah.
Hub, it would exist in.
Yep.
And so transition is the one that is being explored.
So I think the question to this page 118 is, no, I think it's fine just sitting in transition. And for what it's worth, I think maybe more ADUs might be built if STRs were allowed in ADUs, for example, just throwing that out there from that standpoint. But again, like just a counterpoint to be able to, chew on. But for the purpose of this particular 118, I think the answer
is there any
this is good.
support? So if we leave it as it is on 118, but add a footnote to a reference of what exists currently in residential, I know people don't want to read footnotes, but at least it would, or end note rather in this case, it would still be in the plan referencing the restrictions that exist already there. Because it doesn't look like there's support to add hub to transition. And residential currently already has a set of restrictions, though we haven't decided what we're going to do as we go forward. So the question maybe back to the table is, do we want to add residential and transition here, or just leave it as transition?
I do not think we want to add residential.
Great, all right.
But I do want to just voice that, I think I've said this before, but it's perhaps worth saying again, that an STR commercializes a housing unit. And it is, in my view, it is appropriate in some areas of the city, but depending on what area, it conflicts with our equity goal. And if people are, I mean, our transition areas are running through and close to residential neighborhoods. And I think that people are sensitive to, I had this conversation about the ADUs with Mr. Delacourt.
Yeah.
And he said, that's inconsistent with your policy. You've supported ADUs to make it possible for more people to live in Ann Arbor. And the market incentive, once you allow ADUs to be used as SDRs, the market incentive is so high to do that because you can make so much money off the ADU and you can make the ADU make financial sense. And he said, don't do that. You know, people do not, I mean, we don't want the market to be driving everything we think about with housing. We also want housing to help with the condition we're seeing in Ann Arbor, which is it is turning into a city where you have the very rich and those who have subsidy, and that's who gets to live here moving forward, and that doesn't seem good. So I'm worried, I worry about STRs being allowed in transition because I think it marketizes something that we are trying to make accessible, not not open up more chance for commodity.
So for that reasoning, my preference would be to take this statement out in the discussion of transition zones and add a more broad statement that as we revisit the zoning code entirely, we revisit the question of short-term rentals and where they should be allowed and not allowed, or how to strike that balance, and not talk about them just in the context of transition zones.
Well, we could, but the thing about residential is that we already restrict them there. And those that we allow had existed before that restriction was added. And so whatever is allowable in residential is there because it predated a regulation. So that wouldn't be able to change.
That would be the non-conforming uses that would continue because of non-conforming use status.
Right, but then what is the point of revisiting residential other than to make it less restrictive rather than more?
Well, maybe we add a statement that they're currently restricted in residential zones. We should contemplate expanding those restrictions or something. I guess nobody knows right now. I didn't know that they were restricted in residential zones. The plan is pretty quiet on that.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how to signal that, we recognize this is an issue that we need to grapple with in a meaningful way for these reasons, and some explanation somewhere. And I think it's probably time to, even if the staff has done this before, it's changing enough and quickly enough, it's probably worth revisiting the topic.
Yeah, I mean, this is a stingy sentence.
This came out of the council resolution, which is why it's focused on transition. That's why it doesn't address residential as council.
No, and I mean, I'm not saying that I think it should address residential, because I don't think a change can be made. But I think this sentence could, it could be, we should explore extending the same restrictions that currently exist in residential to transition. That would be a less stingy sentence, but it's also very prescriptive, so I don't know quite.
Can I bring our attention to page 54? It says short-term rental impacts the housing supply by taking units off the market. The city will explore the extent to which this has affected Ann Arbor's housing stock.
So you could remove it here in transition, and it is present there. And I think that could be satisfactory. The other thing I just want to daylight for everybody, there is residential in all of these newly imagined districts. So when we talk about residential, I am confused since there is residential in transition and there's residential in hub. And so I wonder if we can get a little more precise in our language when we talk about it to say things that are exclusively residential so that we're distinguishing it. Because as someone who has half of the time I lived here in Ann Arbor, I lived in a more dense residential area. And now at this phase of my life, I'm in an exclusive single-family home restriction. So that's just a personal thing for me as we talk about this in contrast to other things.
But all of the proposed land use categories are mixed use now. There is no more exclusive.
Yes, I mean, that is my point.
But we're
And
talking
so-
about residential, capital R, residential category.
Yeah.
Yeah, not use.
Yeah.
Well, I think the reason why we're using this language is we're trying to explain why transition poses a particular problem in this instance.
Sure, no,
Hub does not
I
pose that
understand,
problem. Yeah.
I understand 100%.
Can I make a
Commissioner Abrams.
proposal?
You may.
On page 108, 109, under future land use approach, we have these small paragraphs, infill development, new and diverse housing options, blah, blah, blah.
You could add one there.
Could we just add one here that says short-term rentals and basically restates that they currently are restricted in residential use or zoning, sorry. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, let's scroll up. What does the header say? It's supposed to be challenges or?
No, this
No,
is
this
just
was
overall
land
introduction
use
to our approach to future
Yeah.
land use.
And it's in this section, so.
And we could just add it here, but I would leave it in the, I personally would just leave it alone everywhere
I
else.
have no problems with it being in
would
transition.
be-
Commissioner Norton wants a small paragraph, it would fit here, I think.
I
quite well.
would like to have that added. I think the other
I'm
information I'll
sorry,
convey.
Can you expound on you would like to have that added? What is that?
Yeah, let me just say first, I'm active with the Michigan Association of Planning. There have been efforts in the state legislature to preempt local ability to regulate short-term rentals.
Yep.
And it's the realtors who are driving this, and they don't like, their view is private property rights, you should be able to rent your property as short-term rental. So we need to be mindful about what we're doing here, given the larger impact it has on the statewide dialogue about this regulation. Having said that, I'm quite concerned that the city not turn into a city of short-term rentals for football games and tourists at the expense of housing stock that we need to provide. So I want to signal that we're aware that this is a complex problem and we need to revisit to make sure that we're striking the balance. And part of what you pointed out on page 58 is, we're going to study how it's impacted things, but we should also then be analyzing potential revisions to the zoning code to address this problem in a fruitful way. So
It sounds like
adding that
there's support at
paragraph
the
to
table
that-
for all of this. Commissioner Adams?
I'll support it, but I'm concerned that the number of permitted short-term rentals in the city is what, like 1,400 out of 42,000 units?
I think we're waiting to find that number.
It's under almost any set of facts, it's not huge. And I realize people are concerned about it, and I understand we've gotten a lot of comments about it, but I feel like we're over-indexing on it. And if we want to include a broader paragraph here expressing a need to study it and focus on it, that's fine. But I don't think it's actually, it does remove units from the market. That's true, but it's not relative to the number of units that we're short. I don't think it's the straw that stirs the drink.
I think, though, it is depending on the neighborhood.
Sure, totally get it.
It can, and certainly in my neighborhood, there's already houses in a very walkable, very close neighborhood that are empty.
Totally get it.
Other than 8 days a year.
Yep.
Because you can get $5,000 a night for those 8
I get
days
it.
a year. And so I think adding something in, I think short-term rental has an effect, whether it's a big effect or a small effect. I think it is part of the land use that in 2009 didn't exist. And so I think it makes sense to have a paragraph that this is something that exists for us now and that we should
updated
drive it
study
rather than
and-
it driving us, and just that we are aware of it as much as possible.
It's totally fair.
I think adding a paragraph here and keeping it where it is to talk about transition.
Totally fair.
That's
think
what I
there's
have
support
in
for
my
that.
notes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think there's support.
What is not supported is
Adding residential or hub.
Yeah, so basically just keeping it where it is.
Yes.
And then adding, and I would even think it could go under that new and diverse housing options paragraph because it talks about how we need more options. So I could add a paragraph under there about it.
Great.
I just want to call out that it says a set of core objectives guided the development of the land use plan, and then those are the core objectives. I think, Michelle, I would support where you're going with that by sort of folding it in. I'm not sure that having it as its own header necessarily makes sense.
I agree.
And for what it is worth, on page 136, under recommendations 1.2, it does specifically say, explore the impacts of short-term rentals on housing supply and pursue restrictions in the transition category if warranted. So, and for what it's worth, I agree that there can be disproportionate impacts of STRs on the feel of a neighborhood. If my neighbor just started doing that, he'd be an absentee landlord, basically, right? So I certainly agree with that. It can have a negative deterring impact, even if it's 1,400 out of 42,000. I don't know that particular figure, but that said, it can also have a disproportionate impact. So the question at hand, I think we agree that there's negative impacts.
I think we're already good on this.
Yeah. The
'cause-
question is, are we moving from transition and broadening to?
Yeah, I think there was no support for that. So
Yeah.
adding the other two
No,
to
I
this
would
line.
just like a statement that we recognize this is a potential problem that we should address more fully. And it's even more complicated, as Mr. Leonard pointed out, because of the way we're combining commercial and residential districts. And there's a lot here that we should be contemplating. So I want to just have that stated in the plan. And if it goes here under its own heading or is folded in, I don't care. Okay.
Okay, I think you have what you need, right? Okay.
Yes.
I think we support it. Sure.
Thanks. On to page 138, speeding up the implementation to 1 to 3 years from, I think it was like 4 to 6. I don't remember exactly, but.
Yeah, and this was Commissioner Mills's edit, and she and I went back and forth because I believe that it could be 1 to 3 or it could be ongoing, and she didn't have a preference either way. So I put what her original edit was.
Okay.
We did receive a request in public comment from Brian Chambers for it to be ongoing, and he referred maybe to a verbal commitment from his city council rep and from planning staff. So maybe we can refer to that comment, or if we agree to change it to ongoing, then that's moot.
I would be in support of ongoing. So,
Same?
Yep.
Great.
Same.
All
Can we
right,
switch
great.
it to ongoing?
Thank you.
Excellent. Well done,
Yeah,
everyone.
exactly. Sweet. Thanks.
Well, the hardest part, I think, is over.
Yes, I think you are correct, Planner Bennett.
But I do
Ha-ha,
want to
that's what she
ask if there's any staff-supported edits that you feel have been misplaced, maybe that they should have been up in the discussion section. Otherwise, we took this as, yes, we understand, we're going to do this. But if you feel like it warrants a larger discussion, I think this is your opportunity.
I didn't see anything.
All right, I think we're good there. Can we just close out by looking at the factual edits?
Yeah, does anyone?
Okay. Is there an opportunity to add anything to the list?
Yes, you
As
can
a factual edit?
No, you can always add anything.
As a discussion item.
Because we are talking about it.
Sure.
What would you like to add?
I didn't know if we were holding that back for the next, we're doing
No.
this again. with
No,
another
we're not
meeting.
doing this plan. Well, I guess that's for you all to decide.
Okay, so I just wanted to take up Mr. Westfall's comment about the way we handle parks, open space, and recreational facilities on the land use map. I think that that's an important comment, and I would like some clarification about why in this instance we are mapping use as opposed to zoning. Or are we not?
You mean ownership?
Sorry, yeah.
You could consider it ownership.
Well, zoning,
So the private golf course, right, we carved that out and we reclassified that as, wait for it. Transition. Like why, if there are other things on here which are privately owned, currently recreational outdoor things, why wouldn't we treat them the same? Or I think, County Farm Park is currently a county, but is currently a park, but owned by the county, which means it could become something else. I don't know.
Most zoning maps or future land use maps are not done by ownership; they're done by land use. I mean that's the premise of the map. Is we're looking at how is the space used, not who is the owner.
Well, I would say that differently. So.
Yeah.
If you want to propose that those should be a different land use than what they are, then you should make those changes to the map.
Yep.
As we talked about, this map is created from a variety of factors. It's created from current uses, existing zoning, considering other plans like transit routes, the rides plan, the like. And so part of that is this plan might identify privately owned property as currently recreational and appropriate for long-term use as recreational. If you disagree with that, then this would be the time where you want to propose an alternative land use for those things.
And we did do that with the privately owned golf club on Stadium. So we've taken that up. We have a precedent of doing that. So I think it would just be figuring out what the underlying land use would be, and then proposing that and seeing if there's support at the table to make that change.
I'm not prepared to do that this evening.
Okay, well then that
Sort
looks like
through
it
all the
will,
green things and.
it will come back to our December meeting if you take it up.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Of course you may.
Thank you. Just regarding baseline data collection and monitoring, this is actually bringing up one of Brian Chambers' comments. This just has to do with annual monitoring, the concept of how do we hold ourselves accountable and collect data, right? Like while it might not have to be the exact prescription, but some level of aspirational statement that we should create some level of data tracking related to implementation as well as outcomes associated with things. I don't know if it, I mean, I've read this a few times, but I don't know if something explicit is there from that standpoint. Just a proffer for thought, should we have some level of statement with a commitment towards data monitoring / annual outcomes tracking associated with this?
Before you, can I ask a question of that?
Yeah, sure.
So I did see that, and there are some pre-existing tools that track certain things. Is this imagined outside of that, or is it an aggregation of those tools plus things we are not currently tracking?
A dashboard, something that aggregates, but also possibly includes more data like tree canopy, housing data, things like how many units,
So
et
there's
cetera.
stuff that
Yeah.
that staff is already.
So in our
keeping track of.
implementation matrix,
Yeah.
there are metrics attached to all of the goals and strategies. So that's the data that we've already committed to collecting
Right.
to track our progress. So I don't know if you
So then it would
want-
be to
if you
aggregate
want-
that into
Yeah, so-
a dashboard.
So I've talked to staff about all of them. These are already things that we collect and have. So if it's, if the question is a matter of compiling all of that for the comp plan to share out annually, I think that's doable. All of the data already exists through different units and departments at the city. But if the question is to be consolidated, we might want to add that as an action to our implementation matrix.
I suppose what I'm thinking is a framework for transparency in that data and something that's accessible. So yeah, whether it's a dashboard, and again, it doesn't have to be prescriptive about the exact actual form of that, but some aspiration that we have to be transparent with that data and make it accessible for folks so that we can track how is this impacting, right? Is this working?
So I could imagine something like that on the Engage website, that planning, updates, because then that's a more accessible place even than the currently and newly released data hub, because a lot of that data is presented for like research and aggregation in other programs and is not, if you will, human readable for a lot of people. So. Yeah, good. It sounds like there's support and the data exists. It's just
And it's in the
aggregating
plan that will track that, yeah. I 100% agree. That's part of our resource commitment to planning. Frankly, I think having dedicated staff to attend to this, to report out, to make progress is reporting out is going to be a big part of that. Not exactly, but just to preview, the planning team has put together a 2-year snapshot of some activity that we've done, that it also includes some dashboard data about housing units, new development, and the like. That'll be rolled out to you and some of the other boards and commissions that we work with and the public soon. I know it's November and it's a 23-24 report, but it is a report. So when you get that, I think that would be an opportunity for you and the public to not only see what we've done, but to Commissioner Lee, to your point, it might be a good way for you to start seeing some information. What are we missing? What are some different ways we could present it? what are some gaps. So look for that.
Sounds good.
I was hoping that there would be electrification data on that. Might there be?
I believe so. Yeah, I'd have to double check the matrix right now, but I have been talking to OSI about their benchmarking ordinance, which tracks those type of things.
Great. And people do really seem to like the roads dashboard.
The roads dashboard?
Yes, the roads that we're fixing and stuff. Those kinds of displays of data are really helpful. I don't know how exactly that would take shape. Maybe a monopoly board. No, I'm just kidding. But
Well, we do have a public-facing public plan map where you can see all development activity that's been approved or under review. That's searchable by type of project. It's searchable by year. But absolutely, there is, and I'll take it a step further. I want to be honest, we relied on a lot of available data. As Michelle said, we talked to a lot of people to make sure we were honest about what we could provide and not. That doesn't have to be the end of it. We might find that there are other data sources that aren't being tracked right now that we want to incorporate. And so that'll be a learning effort over the life of this plan.
that's wonderful. I just wondered I made a list from the public comments that we received, and amazingly, so many of the commissioner comments already addressed those. And so we have addressed we took out high-rise mixed-use building. We made a significant addressing of the historic districts, thanks to Commissioner Norton. We did the ongoing thing. Oh, okay, so the things that are on and we just talked about accountability measures and annual outcomes.
Can we resolve that conversation before you move to your list, though? Is that okay? Well, it wasn't clear to me. Are we saying that we're going to add something in the plan that we're committing to annual reporting of outcomes? Because I don't think there's anything in the plan currently about the frequency of reporting. But I wasn't sure.
We can, yeah.
We can, but we didn't agree to that yet right now, right?
Or it could be something like that we have a commitment to improving transparency and accessibility of data as it relates to tracking. So something that, again, I just want some level of, qualitative commitment towards doing this. Otherwise, it's, we can't, or we have to, so it's just some level of overview. I don't know it has to be as prescriptive as annual, but that we are committed, because an ongoing dashboard actually would be more than annual, right? It would actually, the frequency would be a lot more active. And so just that we have a commitment towards transparency through data publishing and making it accessible to the public, and just the framework that should be critical to holding accountability towards these goals.
Is the recommendation that we add that to the implementation matrix as an action?
I think you could say something like the outcomes and metrics will be sort of reported on this dashboard.
As an action?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Because then that way we're not over-committing to some deliverable, but the dashboard is the aggregation of all of the metrics, and then it's transparent, it's accessible, people can get to it at any time.
Yep.
Got it.
Commissioner Abrams, did you?
No, that's
are you
great.
Okay, great.
So I just had two things.
Just two?
Yeah, because everything that we've talked about was on my list. STRs was also on my list. We just talked about it. So there were two things from the public comments. One was adding something about supporting nonprofit partners to reduce homelessness and displacement. I wasn't sure exactly where that would go or if that should go, but I just wanted to raise it, that I saw that more than once and thought it was either you should point me to where we're already doing it, or. And then I have been thinking about, and there was other people in the public who did, adopting more flexible ADU regulations. I mean, increasing the size perhaps, not to 1,600 square feet, but what we have now ends up to be a small, expensive thing. I don't know that anything would make them more likely to happen here. They seem to succeed better where they already existed before they were legalized, as in Vancouver. But and then in places where the housing market is even crazier than ours. But I'm saying that this is something that I noted, it's been on my mind. I don't know if that should be in the CLUP or it should be something that we have as commissioner proposed business for in the future after we finished rezoning the plan.
You're so optimistic. Okay. Can we just hold that?
Yes.
And then to your first point about the nonprofits in the matrix under 1.4, there's the modify and adapt regulations that are supportive of a variety of housing ownership models, including nonprofits, trust, cooperative housing, co-housing, and/or room and group housing. Does that fit that, or did you intend something differently?
What I took from the comments that I saw was a more explicit reference to supporting nonprofit partners, so who are working in the area. And
specifically around homelessness.
Yeah, homelessness and
That the
displacement. it
plan
says.
would? I'm just trying to locate this inside. The thing I immediately thought about is we can adopt regulations that make it easier for nonprofit partners to build housing. So like we get rid of the rule that required Avalon to do a PUD for the 13-foot overhang on their adjacent properties. That would be something I would support. But how do we land that?
Yeah, that's a challenge. I mean, we can definitely set the goal. I think that the ways that are logical to do it from a land use plan and a regulatory framework are from use based. So it would be, how do we allow more housing to be built? How do, like, if it's homelessness, making sure that we're providing broad opportunities for shelters to be located in a lot of different geographies. Support services are flexible and able to be located in a lot of geographies. I think more generally as a city, the city does support nonprofits. The city, unlike a lot of other cities, actually puts their money where their mouth is in putting dollars into, response agencies, frontline service agencies. And so including that in the plan is an endorsement of that, even though aspects of that might expand beyond this table.
Sure. So, Planner Bennett, is that a clear enough task for you to find a place in the plan to add supportive sentences that convey?
Sounds like he knows how to write it, so I'll ask
And would
him.
that satisfy
Yeah,
what
I think,
you are seeking,
Yeah,
Commissioner Dish?
I think that's great because, yes, I think it's great always to be reminded that we need to differentiate between the instruments that we have control over and also to remember that we have all those boxes where we talk about things that the city's already doing. And we definitely are one of the only, if not the only, city in Washtenaw County that pays additional money on top of the health and safety millage in order to support an array of services, barrier busters, as well as housing, and you participate in that. And so, yeah, it would be great to pat ourselves on the back there.
Yep.
Can I come back to actually the point about the evaluative cycles? Actually, I would like to see an annual outcomes report. I would like to see if, but also I want staff to have a discussion internally about what kind of manpower or woman power would be required for that, person power would be required for that. So, but I would try to add specifically an annual outcomes report.
Great.
Whatever's required there. Thank you.
But it could be aggregated from the dashboard.
Sure.
So I don't know that it needs to be a different work effort. You could just take the dashboard and annually give us an update.
Sure.
Look at the dashboard.
Yes, sorry. Okay. Well, friends, I think we...
One more thing.
Oh, you have more that's not on the document?
Well, no, I was just going to say the other document that was in your packet, if you wanted to bring up any public comment, I know there was a lot. So if you didn't have a chance to read through them all, we still have the December 16th meeting.
Well, Commissioner Dish went through them and highlighted the ones that she saw that were repeated. So that's what we just did.
Okay. And then I will just, for the public, if you submitted your comment after noon on the Thursday prior to a meeting, it will go into the next packet. So if you submitted last Friday and you don't see your comment here, it is going in the next packet. So you will probably have, you'll have a whole nother round of comments submitted in your next packet for you all to review.
Can I ask a quick question about that? So December 16th, but the public comment period doesn't close until January 5th. So what's going to happen with those comments in between those dates?
We'll have to get those to you for your January meeting.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I also read through all of the public comments and took notes, and I think we addressed most of the things that I saw, or many of the things that I saw. There are, of course, comments in there that just say, I don't like this, or great job. We didn't address those. But the one thing I wanted to address is that,
Mr. Monroe.
Mr. Monroe made a comment about limitations on lot assembly, and I just wanted to personally say that is something that I'm very aware of, but I think it doesn't make sense in the comp plan. It's when we talk about the language around dimensional restrictions or appropriate scale, that's where it will happen, but it is not. It's on the list very clearly in bold font. It's not something that's going to slip through the cracks, because I think that is a big part of thinking about what happens in these zones. So I just wanted to respond to that.
All right, with that, are there any other commissioner comments? Well, Planner Bennett, thank you so much for aggregating all of these comments, presenting these edits, and helping lead us through this robust discussion.
Oh, my pleasure.
Will you just recap the next steps for us, please?
The next steps for you in regards to the comprehensive land use plan is to check your packet on December 11th, and that's where there will be another round of public comment. And then I suppose if you all have any more edits, you could submit them then, but this was meant to be your one shot. And frankly, just that was a backup date in case we didn't finish tonight, as previous meetings would have told us.
I guess that's what I'm fishing for. If the public comment ends in January and we're going to have a meeting in January, we're looking at public comment. This interim one would be a chance for us to manage the volume, but I'm wondering if we want to track the volume and make a call about whether we need to do that. But maybe we already noticed that we were going to do it, so we should do it.
So
are you asking that if we didn't receive a ton of new comments that we would not use the 16th? I suppose.
Well, the 16th is a regular meeting, right?
For this topic.
It's just whether
we put this on the
it's just
agenda.
whether this is on the agenda and whether we meet at 5:30.
Got it.
Okay. So I think Mr. Leonard and I could probably
we'll make an assessment of where we are at that point, and
whether we'll keep it at 5:30 or move it to 7.
Got it.
And the signal from staff is this was the commission's opportunity to make its final edits. And I didn't see anybody say, but wait.
But I do want to say.
I spoke too soon, Commissioner Norton.
There's a reason that you have an open public comment period. And I want to make it clear that if public comments come in that we realize, oh my gosh, we need to deal with this, we will.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was excluding that.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was saying that.
I'm not like regurgitating new things I can throw at you all.
Sure.
I definitely want to have the time to review the comments that come in and make sure we're not letting something important slip through the cracks.
Okay, great. No, I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah, okay.
One more question, sorry.
No,
well,
sure.
I didn't realize, for some reason I thought this was a process where we would there would be a stage where you would approve with modifications, right? It's like you submit a paper and it's accepted with minor revision, and you don't have to revise it and resubmit it to get it approved. So, but you indicated to me that actually we are going to see another final draft with these
have to.
Changes
at the public hearing
incorporated.
Yeah. So at the conclusion, so we're trying to manage your workload right now. So that was the intention of tonight and the December meeting. Absolutely, we're going to continue to share with you all of the public comments that are received through January 5th, not only from the public, but if we receive anything from surrounding jurisdictions and stakeholders as well. At the conclusion of that, we need to hear from you if any additional edits you desire based on those comments, then we need to make the changes from tonight all the way through anything you prescribe after the conclusion of that period, so that we can share with you and the public a fully revised plan for consideration and public hearing, ideally in February at this board, for you to adopt it and forward to the city council potentially for their adoption.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Nord.
One other request. I'm going back to the fuzziness of the land use map. Surely, it just, to my mind, it looks like a really grossly pixelated map that doesn't really convey the idea that there are fuzzy boundaries. It just conveys to me it's a really poorly pixelated map. Surely we have the graphic ability to do a better job of kind of making a legible map that has fuzzy boundaries. Is that possible to be working on that?
This is something that I've struggled with the consultants. It is a balance being, we can absolutely do that, and that's where we started. Then I cannot publish you a GIS map. If we want a GIS map that's going to be shared and it's going to be available to whoever wants to use it, at some point we're going to have, I've asked my GIS people, they can't give me fuzzy lines. So.
Problem with GIS today. What if we're trying to convey a map that you can visually see our fuzzy boundaries? What's the benefit of having a GIS map? And that map is available to the public and it's in enough resolution to see what you need to see.
Because people still, despite that generality, people still really want to understand the context of that fuzzy line relative to their property.
Well, that's an incompatible goal. I mean, if we're gonna,
I don't think it is. I think it is. So yeah, we don't have to provide a GIS. That is a tool that would be helpful for us to understand progress for reporting. At some point, you might ask us how much of the land use has been implemented, and that would be a tool we would use to help report on it. So that's the balance that we're trying to strike.
Yeah, so if we're not gonna, if we are gonna produce a GIS map that will allow people to go down to their parcel, then I don't see the benefit of having a grossly pixelated fuzzy boundary map. Or why don't we just draw a precise map? So maybe that's
because we
something for
haven't
us.
done the property by property assessment of those districts, and we won't be able to do that just yet. From what at least from the conversation that I had with staff, there are some implications that we're going to need to consider.
Yeah, if we wanted a parcel by parcel future land use map, it would require
us adopting
a lot of examination at a parcel by parcel map. Like it would be like kind of making a zoning map.
Right.
Not something that we need to decide right now, but my suggestion would be if the intent of the map is to have fuzzy boundaries to signal that there's some fluidity here, then I think it would be better to do a clearly developed fuzzy boundary map that can't be replicated in GIS.
Make it fuzzier than it is now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest is, can we get a higher quality, fuzzier map?
Because if we're going to do it in GIS, and then that necessarily means you're drawing sharp lines, then you're basically doing parcel by parcel mapping. And so we can't do both simultaneously. I get the spirit of the idea of having fuzzy boundaries to signal the fluidity. It makes sense to me then to do a better prepared and presented fuzzy boundary map that's not replicable in GIS. So
yeah, it's competing because the public will probably resist a fuzzier map, because then I have no idea now what this is supposed to convey. So, but I'm happy for us to pick this up again. So I think staff, you've heard Commissioner Norton's comments, and if you could just redress it.
Maybe one thing would be to kind of do two versions, not even the whole city, but in a part, and kind of show the trade-offs. So that might be helpful. I know it's a little bit of extra work, but
It'll just make a map and I'll pour water on it so it bleeds.
We do care about this. We are having lots and lots of conversations about this. I do not want the public to believe that this is not important. It is very important. Okay. Planner Bennett, do you have everything you need from us?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us and for leading us through this process. That now takes us to 11B, a review of commission bylaws. At the annual organization meeting on July 15th, the Planning Commission requested to revisit its bylaws to ensure an alignment with meeting management and public comment flexibility. And this agenda item is presented as an opportunity for us to have that conversation.
Just that. It was flagged as Chair White indicated at that time. I think we are still in the early stages of public comment agenda items as well as public hearing agenda items. For my observation, I think it does seem to be functioning quite well right now, but we wanted to be faithful to the Commission's desire to revisit it at this time.
Are there any concerns, questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Mr. Leonard. That then takes us on to agenda item number 12, public comment on any issue. This is a second opportunity for individuals to speak up to 3 minutes on any issue. We'll hear first from those who are present with us in the chambers, then remote participants. To speak remotely, press star 9 if on phone, or use the raise hand feature if on Zoom. For phone access, dial 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will identify callers by the last 3 digits of their phone number or by name if on Zoom. You will hear an announcement when it's your turn to speak. Please ensure you're in a quiet area and please mute any background noise. For all participants, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present in the chambers who would like to address the commission at this time?
Hello again, Kirk Westfall, 3505 Charter Place. I enjoyed the discussion. Thanks for bringing up some of the map issues. I think there's a structural difficulty in making map comments because you can't really upload images through the web portal, I don't think. So I'd be up for suggestion as to how to best give input on that. And my recollection is that I believe folks have prepared parcel by parcel maps for neighborhood discussions. For example, I think in Burns Park, where some people were concerned about where the transition might go. So I think the ship has sailed in terms of whether this is parcel by parcel, because even though the map looks fuzzy, I think, in terms of ownership and stuff, you can try to delineate what's where, and I believe there are faint parcel lines on the map, if I'm not mistaken. So I think if parcel by parcel maps are being prepared for certain privileged neighborhoods, we should keep that in mind in terms of how exact we are with the map in general. There is some language issues that I hope you guys can take up in your next meeting, and that has to do with displacement and protection of vulnerable populations, vulnerable residents, and I think it reinforces this, I think a common misconception. It sounds nice, but I think it reinforces this common misconception that if we just don't upzone places that have more affordable, relatively, housing, that somehow that will stay more affordable. And that is, I think, counterproductive and just inconsistent with data. So I just want to alert you to, and I emailed this, and it should be in the next meeting packet, that I think language like that could be problematic in the future. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Westfall. Mr. Monroe.
Thanks, guys. Greg Monroe, Bending Road. Okay, so I appreciate you acknowledging the STRs, the lot assembly, and the KPIs. I would appreciate like an annual report out. I mean, just make skeptics like me, make me a convert me, right? Show me that this is working. But I wanted to talk about the GIS thing. And, if there's no GIS, I think that means that these boundaries are not final and they can still be modified, which I appreciate. I think that's what I'm hearing. And I understand you guys are doing your best. I understand this is a policy document, but I also kind of want to bring the perspective of residents on just how some of this is landing. And, I legit, the parcel you guys discussed earlier, on the Plymouth Road, I did not know that was transition because it had the word Plymouth Road written over it, and I never saw it. And I've spent a lot of time looking at this map, right? So, and I think this kind of falls into what I would characterize as sort of this amorphous thing that's presented to us, and can kind of feel like a defense mechanism sometimes. That, I understand we don't want to clearly communicate something that is undefined, that it's flexible, that it has boundaries, but this is the plan, and we clearly, we've talked about specific areas and parcels, so there's something there to discuss, right? And I just think residents of the city deserve something to look at and understand exactly what the current boundaries of that flexibility are, because otherwise, sometimes it feels like, hey, we can't critique it, we can't shape it, we can't be concerned by it because it's not a thing, when it is very much a thing, right? And it is consequential, and it is real, and it is deterministic. So, I get it. Even the lot assembly thing, I understand, but I think for a lot of folks, it's confusing. What is land use? What isn't the plan? What isn't? What's zoning, UDC? And I understand that this is your profession, or you're in this appointed role, and it's, I work in tech. I understand when people come in and be like, well, why can't I just do this? And, you don't know what you're talking about. And, and so I really, truly appreciate that. But I don't know. I was just asking for a little bit more, because even me as the layman, I don't understand why we can't put more aggressive STR language in the comprehensive plan, right? And Commissioner Norton, I appreciate you articulating my concerns, right? That I thought we have studied this, and we do know that it is actually pernicious, right? And it doesn't actually bring about the affordability goals that we want to, right? And so, I don't know. There's just some things that it's confusing to me what goes in and what doesn't. And I'm not necessarily saying that I have the right answer. I know better than you all, but yeah, I think that's what I want to say. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Do we have any? Oh, no. We have one more in-person commenter.
Hi, Alex Lowe, 2532 Pittsfield Boulevard. I've got a few comments just about the conversation that went on tonight. The first one is about STRs commercializing residential houses. All rentals do that. If you don't want housing to be commercialized, then the thing that you need to do is ban rentals and ban private ownership of houses. Otherwise, it's going to naturally be commercialized as soon as people start selling their homes to each other. So I think that saying that STRs commercialize houses is really quite a stretch. I also will say, as someone in engineering, I'm a big fan of dashboards. I really am. Please, more dashboards. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. All right, seeing no more in-person commenters, do we have online participants, Mr. Leonard?
We do.
Oh, we got some. Wonderful.
Mark, you can address the Planning Commission for up to 3 minutes.
Hello, Mark Skirbo calling in from not home, traveling for work, so I missed most of the discussion, and I look forward to catching up tomorrow. But in regards to some of the conversation around fuzzy maps, I just want to say that when you get around to doing the zoning, I imagine there will be a bit of a chicken and egg situation in which you're both discussing the technicalities of the zoning, like the setbacks and the FAR limits and all of these details, while also talking about the neighborhood context and which parcels fit with which specifics of zoning. And so I really think that, as you've talked about, the fuzziness in the map makes sense now. It really does make sense. This is a guidance document and lays out the kind of guiding principles behind what future zoning might look like. But you're going to end up having these back and forth conversations where you're talking about which parcels should the new zoning apply to and what does that new zoning actually require. And so it doesn't make sense to me right now to have a detailed GIS map that lays out these land use districts. That will come later, and those conversations about which parcels get which zoning have to happen in parallel to the conversation about what is that zoning. So keep up the good work. It feels like we've been having these conversations for well over 2 years at this point, and these last, well, now we're into the 63 days, but the last 63 days feel like they're gonna take even longer. But I'm really excited for the plan to wrap up and get into the exciting detailed work of zoning so that we can get to the real work of actually building enough housing for all the people who want to live here. And I welcome more neighbors. So thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending with 534. You can unmute and address the Planning Commission for up to 3 minutes.
Good evening again. This is Tom Stolberg. On the short-term rental issue, I believe people do not really understand this issue and the impact that it will have if you let the genie out of the bottle. You've taken an area, say R4C, for example, and put that in a transition category. Non-owner occupied short-term rentals were prohibited in R4C before, and now all of a sudden it's unknown what's going to happen. You're going to look at the limits later. That's really not appropriate. This needs to be done now in the comprehensive plan. When you write the zoning law, also you really should have legal take a look at it. You're throwing out the existing zoning codes and creating new zoning codes. What laws apply and don't apply, and how do you need to rewrite them? And I think you're a little in over your heads here, deep water. For example, you have a transition category property that's a 2-story apartment building right down, say, near Argo Livery in the Cascades. Should that be all short-term rental? This is a policy decision. The problem is we have a political document here, not a policy document. Comprehensive plans do not necessarily eschew all details. And in this case, you've made a political decision to say, we're putting almost all the details later when we write the zoning code. That is not a rule. That is a political choice that you are making with this document to eschew putting in details now. That is not done in a lot of other comprehensive plans. They do have much more detail than this one. So you're walking into a problem, especially in the short-term rentals, with the consequences because of the nature of the changes that you're making. This comprehensive plan is supposed to be the vision for the community. If you have a very small percentage of the people in this city even understanding what you're doing, or maybe they're in a residential or transition category and they don't even know, how is it their vision? What is their vision? Their vision is so blurred by lack of details, and now we're blurring the lines. Well, you used a rubric, for example, R1 and R2 go to residential, R3, R4 go to transition. So you do have some hard lines on these maps. I understand why you're saying it's fuzzy for a reason, but for the most part, the way you generated it, there are pretty hard lines on most parts of the city, and people do care.
30 more seconds.
Happens, 'cause they do care if they're in one category or a different category, and people do have a right to have some idea, if this is the community's vision for the future of Ann Arbor, what that means to them individually and to a whole neighborhood. The short-term rentals is just a disastrous problem waiting to happen. I really wish you would ask legal about some of the issues that you're walking into right here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stolberg.
Luis Vasquez, you have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Greetings, Planning Commissioners and City staff. Luis Vasquez, 909 Barton Drive. in Upper Lower Town. Thank you once again for your commitment and your time and your bravery, actually, in tackling all these issues and discussing all these issues in front of a public that, gosh, maybe doesn't understand. There's only apparently from the previous caller, there's only a select few who really, truly understand every single nuance about zoning and short-term rentals and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But I was struck particularly by re-raising the issue about the direction given to you by council to only make triplexes by right. I'm of the opinion that it should be at least quadplexes and sixplexes that can be built by right in our city, and that would go a long way towards helping to alleviate the housing crisis that exists in Ann Arbor. So thank you very much. Continue your work. I look forward to the details as they come along. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez.
No other callers.
With that, I will close the public comment and move us to commission proposed business. Is there any? Oh, your staff.
I don't have proposed business, but just for the commission and anybody who's watching, I just want to clarify. Every ordinance that is reviewed and considered by the city council is, of course, reviewed by the city's robust city attorney's office. So, obviously, people have different perspectives on what those regulations should be, but I just wanted to be clear that any ordinance is absolutely reviewed by legal counsel.
Thank you for that, Mr. Leonard. Commissioner Abram.
Could I ask you to make another clarification, which is that there's no limbo time when zoning gets thrown away and we don't know what's happening and new rules have not been established?
As a reminder, and this is something that is challenging, but we've been at this for 2.5 years, and at the adoption of this plan, nothing changes. Our current regulatory framework remains, and it is then our job to consider modifications to our land use, our zoning, our ordinances to realize that goal. So there's no limbo period where there is portions of the city that are unregulated.
Correct. I did have one small commission proposed thing. So I had the opportunity to meet with Planner Bennett to ask some questions about the transition zoning as it nears residential. And as a result of that, we're working on a communication to come back to this body to try to clarify all of the steps of the process, where we are in the process, what's coming next, how people can expect it. Your comments tonight, Mr. Monroe, I had your name right all night long, are in front of mine. All of us are talking about these things. We're listening very carefully to what you are sharing, and we are trying to resolve it. And the thing I want to say both to you and to the viewing public is the majority of us are volunteers who sit here. And so we have jobs, we have families, we have obligations, but we do take this appointment seriously. And so we are spending time to reassure you. And so Mr. Leonard is absolutely correct. The Comprehensive Land Use Plan does not change the UDC. But once the Comprehensive Land Use Plan is passed, I imagine property owners will petition city planning for rezoning. So he is absolutely correct. It doesn't change anything, but there will be action that will come before the regulatory UDC changes occur. And so those are the kinds of things that we want to clarify, that we want to help the public recognize that we hear you when we say one thing, but you feel something different. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page talking about the same things correctly. And I understand your concern around the GIS map, and in my conversation we had a overlay map in GSI that looked at the TC1 that sort of helped where all the boundaries were, and I was like, oh, could we do something like this for transition? And part of the answer to that question is not yet, because we don't actually know what the standards are going to be in that district as it becomes a zone. So we can't automatically just create that map and then present it to you. So I don't think it is the case at the table that we are trying to obfuscate anything. It's that we're working in a process, and I'm a fellow tech person, so this is a product development report, and we've got a lot of steps, and we got to talk to a lot of people before we can actually even get to the implementation and the coding and the QA before we release it to the general public. Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Lee.
Just really quickly, thank you to staff for all of your
Absolutely.
hard work on this. Thank you to the commissioners, and most importantly, thank you to the public who's spoken here. It's always tough to speak in public, so thank you to everyone that shows up, gives their feedback, because we are listening. So thank you to all.
Commissioner Dish? No. Oh, okay. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Hammersmith, seconded by Commissioner Adams. We are adjourned.